All right, everybody, good evening. Welcome to our April Caucus meeting, April 5th, 2022. Thank you for your patience. It is 7:04, and we will begin our April Caucus meeting. So we're going to begin this evening, as you can see, with some distinguished guests. And March was Music in Schools Month, and what better way to start out a caucus meeting with several presentations than having some of our great students here to showcase several of their talents. And you've probably all have heard and been a part and seen how they bring music into our schools and into our communities. And we're extremely pleased and privileged to have you here this evening with us. So I will introduce Mrs. Weaver and Mr. Ben Caraher here from the high school, both our Director of Choral Programs and our Director of Bands, to introduce our outstanding students. So let's get this thing rocking and rolling.
Cool. Hello, I am Allie Fritz, and I am in 12th grade this year. What you just heard was a sax quartet, which is an example of chamber music, which chamber music has been around for centuries, and traditionally there is only one person per part and no conductor, as you can see. So, coming up from the Chamber Singers is a small ensemble, this year being our smallest chamber choir yet. We're able to sing and work together without a conductor. There are 8 voice parts in which you will hear, which only has 1 to 2 people per part. Therefore, we put a lot of trust into one another, and we've become stronger singers and musicians because of it. So now you will hear from another senior, Rochelle.
Which way are we going? This way. So Allie was smart and wrote hers on paper. I did not, so I just have a screenshot of it here. I'm going to be telling you about I forgot to introduce myself. Hi, I'm Rochelle. I'm a senior this year. And I'm going to be telling you about our Ensembles and Opportunities here at Susquenita High School. We offer plenty of opportunities for students to expand their knowledge in music, both in classes and extracurriculars. Excuse me. Music classes that we offer here include music theory, AP music theory, voice class, and music tech. And ensembles that we have during the school day include concert band, festival chorus, and the West Side Singers. And while West Side is an auditioned ensemble, festival chorus, and concert band can be taken by anyone who desires to play an instrument or sing in the choir without the stress of auditioning. Extracurriculars offered by our music department include marching band, jazz band, and chamber singers. And, of course, the spring musical. And I wrote in here by invitation only, pit band. Since Chamber Singers is a small sect of the West Side Singers, it is also an auditioned group. Who's next? Zion is next. You want someone to hold your saxophone? Nope. No. She's good. I also have it on my phone.
Hello. My name is Zion Wilson. I'm in 11th grade. I am a part of both the West Side Singers and band. And in the past year, I've been fortunate as to go to several amazing events through the band and the choir. My personal favorites from this year were the Christmas craft show for our West Side performance, and we had a jazz performance at the Broad Street Market, which also included chambers, I believe. In both cases, we were able to perform for crowds, and then we had the opportunity to check out everything these places had to offer. Other events were singing at local churches, singing for Senator DeSanto, senior centers, cabaret, adjudications, and more. I have the best time with my family in the music department, and my best memories have all come from the ensembles I belong to.
Hi, my name is Madison Scott, and I am in 9th grade. And I am also a part of the band, the marching band and the jazz band. This year in marching band, we went to our first competition, which was a blast. It was so much fun being able to experience all the bands performing, and just the energy while being on the field was amazing. We played in parades, including the Harrisburg Holiday Parade, where we placed 3rd, and the Perry County's Veterans Day Parade, where we won Best Marching Band. Concert band is also a lot of fun. The music is challenging, and the storylines that go with the pieces are very interesting. In jazz, we do a lot of really fun songs. My personal favorite we've played is called Buffalo Wings. We played this year at Broad Street Market, which was a lot of fun, cold but fun. It was interesting to see how many people came to see us perform. We also went to the Fire and Ice Festival and played there. Jazz band and West Side will also be performing again this Friday at Greenwood for the Perry County Jazz Fest. Band has been one of the best things I'm glad I've invested my time and effort into.
Hi, my name is Sarah Euler, and I'm a senior. I am a part of all of the different vocal ensembles that our school has to offer. And I also am a part of the marching band. I do color guard, so not an instrument, but it's still pretty cool. So it is my privilege to talk about what I've learned about music. And anybody who knows me knows that I can talk for a very long time, so I'll try and keep it short and spare you guys. But before I joined Westside and joined music things in general in high school, I liked singing and I knew I liked music. It was okay. But I didn't really care for choir. Like, the music was kind of slow and boring, and like, it just wasn't my style. So I was transferring schools, and somebody that I knew was like, oh, well, there's this great choir, like, it's called West Side Singers, you can audition for it. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess, like, I'll give it a shot. And so my brother and I, we got audition spots, and we go, and I get a letter in the mail, and it's like, you're in West Side. And I was like, okay, cool. And little did I know that that was going to be one of the greatest things that has happened to me, and one of the just best opportunities I had. And something I noticed right off the bat was choir at this school was very different than my past experiences. We didn't just show up to look at this piece of music and go through it and memorize it and learn it and sing it in front of our parents after a couple months. We showed up and we learned how to sing, and we learned what our voice does whenever we sing and all the different parts of it, and how to sing properly and in a healthy manner, and vowel shapes and Latin pronunciation and all of these things that I never would have thought of before, and just all of this knowledge. And our AP Music Theory class, some of us are a part of, and just the opportunity to look at a piece of music and all this gibberish and a whole other language, be able to look at that and be like, wow, I know what that means. And that was definitely one of the most rewarding, the knowledge and mental part of learning about music. But on top of that, being a part of all of these different ensembles and trying to juggle that with school and classes and getting good grades and all that stuff has definitely taught me, and I'm sure everybody else could agree, very strong work ethic, knowing how to come to practices. You work hard, you go home, and if you work hard and practice while you're at home, or at least you should be practicing. But overall, everybody cares about putting in a good product, and the amount of kids that I know that own a vocal steamer and drink tea and know so much about vocal health is astonishing. And the environment that just encourages us to not only be students but be performers is something that I very much appreciate. But even on top of that, one of the things that has meant the most to me about all of these different ensembles is learning about all of these wonderful people that you see and making some of the best friends in my life and having some of the best mentors that I could have ever asked for. Once again, if you ask anybody, whenever I came to this school, I did not talk to anybody and probably didn't talk for a hot minute, but through choir and different gigs that we got to be a part of and the musical, my freshman year was just all of these amazing growing opportunities where I was able to break out of my shell and meet all these new people. And the opportunity to connect with other people my age who all care with the same passion about these things that we all love so much, along with teachers who are passionate and care about us not only as performers, but also as people, and teach us good physical and mental habits while on top of that telling us all of the music amazing knowledge that I've told you about before. So all in all, over my time at Susquenita, music has definitely had a monumental impact and has for sure taught me some valuable lessons that I will carry with me for the rest of my life. And next up, you're going to hear from our chamber choir.
Can I ask what a vocal steamer is?
I looked it up, Dr. Rubin.
Well, a vocal steamer is kind of like, right, it's like a personal humidifier. You get your little thing, it's got a little mask that you kind of like stuff your face into. And then, right, and you know whenever you're sick, and sometimes you just hop in the shower and like the steam like clears out your sinuses. It's like your own personal like mini shower for your face. Absolutely.
All right, hope you guys enjoyed that little song called Hallway. My name is Olivia Oxt. I am a senior this year, and I play the clarinet and concert band. I was a part of marching band, and I'm in all of the singing groups that we have here at Susquenita. Like Sarah said, I really like to talk a lot, so I'll try to keep this short as much as I can. When you come across a piece of music, one would think of paper, notes, a composer, a singer. Music isn't just those concepts, but more than the eye can see or the ear can hear. Music can have a huge impact on anyone listening, which to me is pretty life-changing. When one listens to the lyrics written or actually sings the song, there is a more emotional appeal that kind of like moves your soul. To me, music has always been a part of my life. Ever since I was a child, there was always singing and music playing. I started singing at a young age and discovering music tastes as I grew. Arriving into high school, I always had an eye for the music department, West Side, and chorus. Still being young, I quickly dove into the family that we all created. As mentioned before, I don't see music as someone simply drawing notes on paper. I see moving aspects. Statistically proven, music changes your state of mind, reduces heart rate, relaxes the body of anxiety, and quickly improves mood. The sound and vibrations that are created create like an experience that your body enjoys to hear, which has a favorable attitude. When you tap your foot or move to the beat, your body enjoys those sounds. The thought and emotion that you put into each piece, either melancholy or gospel, you see passion and curiosity. You see talent and charisma. There is a wide range of emotion that is ethereal. The amount of times that I felt stressed or upset about life, going to West Side, listening to music, and singing, just about anything that has to do with sounds being made, makes me feel so much better. To make matters fly over the top, the teachers, Miss Weaver and Mr. Carraher, are two of the best instructors and directors I've ever met. The support, encouragement, and overall teaching has taught me so many life lessons, and I am who I am today because of those lessons. Music helped me burst out of the quiet shell I used to hide in. I usually wouldn't be the type of person to audition for a solo in a song. I was always in the back, and now I'm up there just singing away. When I finally let go, I realized that I'm not afraid anymore to show who I am. And although this sounds crazy, it's the truth. Music has been my number one outlet, and I bet everyone here would agree with me too. Music just doesn't warm people, but it also just doesn't move music people. It also moves anyone who wants to listen. Thank you.
Well, hello, my name is Landon, and I'm a senior this year. Music is very important to me because, now I picked it as the place where I want to go for my career, and I'm going to go to Messiah College, or Messiah University, to learn music production. I was involved in band ever since 4th grade, whenever they first allowed me to go in. I remember my dad pulling out his trumpet, and I was very excited about it. And wondered how he played it, and well, I went to band and learned how to play it, and here I am, a 12th grader, still playing the trumpet. I also was very, very shy, like a lot of people probably started out here, until this year, where these two lovely people behind me encouraged me to join Westside. I was not one for singing, but one for playing an instrument more. But ever since I joined Westside, I feel like I've popped out of my bubble and come out to show who I truly am. I also had another really big inspiration for choosing music as my path for my life. It was my stepdad. He also was a musician. He was in a band, and it was really fun to go around and go to concerts and watch him play the keyboard and other stuff for the band. I also met a lot of people that inspired me as well to become a musician, and I just really want to honor him since he died. He died a couple months ago. And the way I coped with that was I listened to a lot of music that really warmed my heart. I also thought of just music in general and how it moves everyone within us. It creates another personality within you. And that's all I really have to say, so thank you guys.
I got my password right. Okay. Hello, my name is Bethany, and I'm in 11th grade. I haven't had the most ideal past few years of high school. A lot contributed to it, COVID, but a constant positive influence was music. Even if I was away from home, I found my home in the melodies that have inspired a new perspective of the world each time I sing them. I've been in vocal lessons for the last 8.5 years, but never fully encapsulated the significance of music in my life and in the world until I got to sing with Westside Singers. To be surrounded by peers of mine who are as passionate about music as I am is to be given an inexplicable fulfillment. Aside from my peers, for whom I am incredibly grateful for, I owe the utmost thanks to Mr. Caraher and Mrs. Weaver, who bring out the absolute best in every student, no matter their musical abilities. Although I don't have any of Mr. Caraher's classes yet, he never passes up an opportunity to broaden my horizons, whether it's in regards to music or just life in general. I'm with Mrs. Weaver 4 periods out of the day this semester, so she's like my honorary big sister. Whether it's through what she says or how she acts, she has taught me so much about how to be a better musician and human being in general. To give a bit of a better picture on my personal experiences with music, here's a poem I wrote in the midst of COVID called What Music Does for Me. The strum of a guitar, the touch of a piano, this music I play, I love more than you know. The sound of my voice takes me on a journey where all I do is hear, and that helps me to see. I can journey past my senses into wonders of the earth, from the gardens of Babylon to where Mary gave birth. I can imagine stories of tragedy and romance just by hearing this music without giving anything a glance. With my choir, I can tell stories of cherubim and seraphim. We can bring you to Jesus with the sound of a hymn. One verse to the next, music says how I'm feeling. One note at a time, it helps me through my healing. After all of this, I hope that you can see how important music is and all that it does for me.
Well, good evening. My name is Tyler Keller-Stepp. I've been part of this family for the last 3 years, and these are some of the greatest people I've ever met. They're one of the reasons that I choose to come to school every day, and I can't thank them all enough for that. These people, the directors, they all helped me grow to be the person I am today, and, well, that's enough about me. You're here to listen to us sing, and I'm here to present the song we're going to sing next. It's called Finlandia. It is regarded as the national anthem of Finland, and it follows a lot of things that I think are very important in today's world. It speaks and dreams of a world where there's peace, no bloodshed, and everyone can pursue the kind of life they want without any fear. So, without further ado, I present to you Finlandia, performed by Susquenita High School's Chamber Choir and Sex Station with representation.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. That was a great way to start a meeting. So if you're available in May, we would love to have you back because I think that is excellent. And thank you for showcasing your talents and thank you for your passions and also for recognizing your teachers. And I love the community that you've built and your willingness to share with not just here at Susquenita, but outside of our district as well, and your talents with the greater community. I think that we can all learn something. Individually, you all have extremely powerful voices and talents, but together, you make splendid music. And I think that's a representation for all of us. Individually, we're great, but together, we're even greater. So thank you for sharing that with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. And parents, you're more than welcome to stay for our caucus meeting if you care to.
Oh, that was outstanding. Looking at resignation leaves, transfers, and employment on our agenda coming up for April the 12th. We have a retirement. We have Kathy Fackler, who will be retiring at the end of the year. And Kathy has done an excellent job. She's our secretary to the Director of Special Education. And if you've met Kathy, she is extremely hardworking, dedicated, committed, and it will be a significant loss, but we wish her all the best after 27 dedicated years here at Susquenita School District. So feel free to deny that one if you'd like. But no, we wish her all the best. And also under employment, we have Ashley Balisic from Marysville as a high-risk instructional aide. And we're excited tonight because we do have some presentation on instructional aides, and it segues very nicely. And we're excited to have Ashley join us starting April 19th. We also have a science teacher, science/biology at the secondary level, Lauren Getcher. Lauren is coming up upon graduation, and Lauren just is going to be graduating from the University of Pittsburgh at Johnstown. She's from Wyomissing, and she is a Division III volleyball player where she was a scholar athlete for several years, and has experiences also being a volleyball coach and track and field experience, being a track and field coach in throws as well. So we're excited to welcome Lauren to our district, starting with the 22-23 school year. We also have successful completion of a 90-day evaluation for Tom Reynolds. Tom has done an excellent job for us, and I don't think the evaluation even speaks to his high level of work that he's done and continues to do. We have a G, which is athletic coaches and volunteers for the fall. Typically, we will approve our fall coaches more in the May and June meeting, but because we kind of had a low in terms of just in cheerleading, we want to continue that momentum of capturing some open gyms coming up and recruiting some students for the fall. We're excited to recommend Amy Timchak, head coach for the program. And that is for resignations, leaves, transfers, and employment. Moving on to agenda items for the April 12th meeting. We will have some student presentations from our student reps. They do a great job of Cadence and Taryn. We will have an overview by Mr. Brune from Cumberland Perry Career and Tech Center. We also will have some of our teachers that were part of our Vanguard group, which is, when you look at Vanguard, the word, when you break it apart, right, means at the forefront of action and movement. And these teachers have volunteered their time in service to be a part of our Apple Professional Learning. And they're going to share some of their experiences of taking some of that learning and implementing it within the classrooms. So we're excited about that presentation next week as well. We have some approval of treasurer's reports and payment of orders, and some fund balance commitments that we will look at approval, and I'll do some presentations tonight on our fun balance. I get it. We also have charter school funding reform, and I'll read into action that cyber charter resolution this evening for us as well to see if there's interest in approving that on April the 12th. We have as well a motion to approve for the South Central Healthcare Trust. We're part of South Central Healthcare Trust, and we're looking to approve our new assistant to the superintendent for finance and operations, Mr. Peter Bard, as a new trustee for the South Central Trust and giving us that needed membership and commitment to the trust that we're a part of. And a memorandum of understanding to approve the Diacon Family Life Services to implement school-based outpatient drug and alcohol services at no charge to the district. And that gives a full complement of services from school-based outpatient mental health to school-based outpatient drug and alcohol, removing some of that transportation burden that could fall under parents and allowing us to be a site-based approved provider where the counselor will come in and work with students during times that's conducive to everybody's schedule. And an approval for a recommendation for a student discipline committee meeting. Some reports from our CPCTC representative to the Joint Operating Committee, Dr. Rubrish, as well as Susquenita Blackhawk Foundation update as well that we will receive. And some information on disposition of items. We have some shoulder pads from football, and these shoulder pads are no longer going to be able to be conditioned. So they get certified every year, and sometimes, unfortunately, these, after certification in several uses, they don't pass certification. So they're no longer good to us to issue to students, but we possibly may be able to generate some revenue back by selling them with a disclaimer that they're no longer going to be certified. So we're going to be looking to do that, and there's approximately 59 of those, as well as the disposition for removal of several items at the middle school that were within a hallway that I think were kind of collected there and just needed to be processed and removed. So we're looking to clean that hallway up and open that hallway back up to the movement of students and traffic, as well as some administrative reports. So that's for agenda items. Review of finances. So just kind of an overview of our finances to date right now. We continue to work, as you will see, to refine our budget process, and we continue to work collectively to renew our food service provider as well. So every year we have to update to the Pennsylvania Department of Education our food service agreement, and we're working on that. It's quite a tedious process, so we're working on that as well currently. Our current budget status overview as of March 31st, 2022 is we had spent approximately $24,196,971, or that comes out to roughly 68.2% of our budget. In comparison to this time last year, we were about 64.1% of the budget expended. So I would say roughly we were right on track. With about 12 weeks left in the fiscal year, I would say we are doing quite well in terms of our expenditures. In terms of revenue, we've collected or received approximately $15,265,184.91, or 93.7% of revenue is collected for the year to date. So last year at this time, comparatively, we were about 76.29% received, or about $11 million. So we're doing well in terms of collecting revenue to offset some of our expenditures. And a lot of that has to do with the prudence, responsibility, and attention to detail from our incredible staff in the business office right now and their hard work. So that is finances to date for review of finances. So I'm super excited at this point to open the floor and welcome Dr. Tyler Herman and Mr. Phoenix for a gifted support program update. I know they've been working hard, and to offer the floor up to them.
Just waiting for my slides to go up here. So for those who do not know me, I am Mr. Phoenix. I've been with the district for quite a while in different roles, and midway through the year, November, I did accept and started working in the Gifted Support Program, which I feel has been able to allow me to do a lot of different things, connecting in all three buildings and reaching our students within the gifted program. You can hit to the next slide. So one of the things that we are updating tonight is our gifted matrix, and Dr. Herman brought myself and the school psychologist in to look at our gifted matrix, and we found some areas that we really felt we needed to shake it up a bit. Our old matrix had 3 levels, and each level required a parent's signature to continue the evaluation, and if a student did not meet a level, the evaluation ended. It was not a full evaluation. And in our last student who went through this, it took about 5 to 6 months to complete this process to get the student identified. So this was taking a long time. Our new matrix now, it is 1 consent for evaluation. It is a full evaluation, which will give us, as soon as we get that response back, it's 60 days, and we will have the evaluation complete. We also added new elements to the matrix to broaden our scope, so we can consider more data, and hopefully we can catch some subgroups that we may have missed within the old matrix. So this is one of the big things we've worked on, and I feel will be very beneficial to get us moving. We now do have students identified in all the buildings. We were missing 1 building, but now we have identified students in all of our buildings. We now have plenty of students in the evaluation process, and also quite a few still waiting for permission to evaluate. So we are very busy in the gifted program. The psychologist and myself, Dr. Herman, requests come in pretty regularly right now. So some things we're doing in the program. One of the items that I've worked with the students is the stock market game competition that we do from a local bank that puts this up. And currently the elementary, I do a 3rd and 4th grade enrichment groups along with the identified students. And we are right now sitting in 1st place. And some of those students are actually within the top 20 competing in this contest against high school students. So we are holding our own at the elementary level. Middle school, we're sitting in 2nd place. And this is a county competition between Juniata and Perry County schools are all involved. In high school, we're in 3rd place. We've kind of bounced from 3rd to 5th right there. And I put in a quote from the vice president of the bank that supports this program. Thought this was pretty cool. So from Susquenita Elementary and more, Richard Phoenix shines bright with a really tough-to-teach group of youngsters to learn to be savvy little traders. And I will say, when I was showing them what to do, I now have lost $17,000 in the stock market. So they are quite outshining me. And so
of your own money, or is that fake money?
It is fake money.
Okay, good.
Luckily. So there are awards that students can earn as well. So it's pretty cool to get the recognition out there. National History Day, we did have a student place 4th in their presentation, so it was really neat to get out there. And we're continuing to meet individual paths, help enrich, accelerate, and support our gifted population. Some of the things when I came over, I asked the students what they wanted, especially at the high school level, and it was really to bring a commitment to being there for them, listening, and putting boundaries and helping them put boundaries on things. A lot of these students hear from community members, staff, you're going to do great things, and now they're scared. They're like, I don't know what I want to do. So now they feel like they're going to fail. So we're working a lot on those things, on career development. And Mrs. Singley's going to be helping me out in doing some presentations that we're looking at next year. We're going to work with Mr. Funk, Mrs. Murray. So we got a lot of things coming up that we're going to expose the gifted program, and they are also in the works of creating some pretty amazing ideas that will impact our school that we'll be bringing up to Mr. Funk and the administration as they're getting their heads wrapped around some new projects that they would like to see happen within the district. And again, it allows me to meet their needs. Every day is a little bit different on what they need. Our discussions and book clubs go in very different ways that sometimes I'm not prepared for, but they want to bring it. So, and then sometimes they need just the ideas of where to go to college. Talking it out without any kind of motivation on my part, just wanting to support them in having those conversations. So really, I think a nice start for me, learning the program and working with the students and families on this journey. So I think we're moving in the right direction. Any questions, thoughts?
Thank you, Mr. Phoenix, and thank you, Dr. Herman. I think, and I think collectively, when we look at gifted education and gifted support, really enjoy the vision of where we're moving, the direction that we're going. So it's not just one more thing that a student needs to do. Yet what we are doing is what we want to do with all of our students, right? Is discover and unleash their passions and allow it to be connecting to future goals that they want to, and of providing opportunities, not just, and yes, sometimes within our district and outside, which connects firmly with our overall comprehensive plan as well. So I'm excited for the continuation in the direction, and excited to continue to partner with you and our programs as well as our principals. So thank you for everything.
Absolutely, thank you. And I want to thank the board quickly. Just in May, SCA will be holding new voting on our leadership. I've maxed out, so I will no longer be president. So, but I'm going to be taking another role, I'm told. So, not totally gone, but I do want to appreciate. It's been a interesting 4 years together, but in conversations with you all, I know you always looked for the best of the students, and we'd had a lot of great conversations. So I always appreciated those of you reaching out to have those conversations, and I really felt like we always made progress, and we're always working for the same goal. And I do appreciate listening and partnering up with you guys over these last 4 years. And I'm a resident, so always willing to be there if you guys need anything. So thank you very much.
Thank you again. All right, transitioning into having fun with fund balance. That was funny? All right, that was pretty bad. Okay. But anyway, this is an important aspect for us to talk about fund balance. And when we talk about fund balance this time of year, we're talking about a fund balance appropriation discussion for fiscal year 22, the current year that we are in. So looking at what fund balance is, we know fund balances are the access of funds and assets over liabilities. And this is created when us as a district have funds left over at the conclusion of a fiscal year from either underspending and the prudence and responsibility associated with all of us, or gaining gaining additional revenue. We are fortunate to have the final results of our fiscal year 2021 audit and the final statement of our fund balance. So we have committed fund balances in prior years for the Pennsylvania State Educators Retirement System, or affectionately known as PSERS, our capital reserve, and our healthcare reserve associated with our South Central Trust that we're a partnership with. Prior year appropriated fund balances, as we said, retirement healthcare reserves are also a line that we have kept and we want to continue to keep in there, and capital reserve as well as undesignated fund balance. Some conditions currently right now, we estimate where we are at this time of year. So kind of looking at our spending and what we're currently and how we're trending, as we kind of just showcased a couple minutes ago, looking at current fiscal year 22, and knowing right now that we're about 68.4% expended in terms of our current usage of our budget. We want to set these fund balance commitments for this year, and typically they're done around January, but unfortunately some delays in our audit has us this opportunity, right, to look at this. But let's take this as an opportunity to really look at the extent of our fiscal year 22 budget deficit, because we know coming in, we had planned to use some fund balance to offset some of our revenue and expenditures, and utilizing some of our undesignated fund balance. So we want to set our commitments for fiscal year 22 with our fund balance at the conclusion, a very healthy fund balance, I must add, by our auditors at approximately $15,295,763 from fiscal year 21. So we did budget last year for fiscal year 21 to 22 to use approximately $3 million in fund balance to offset our budget when it was approved. And we know we have a health care, which is part of our South Central Trust, and that's a firm commitment that we currently have because of our relationship and our bylaws that we have within that being a part of that South Central Trust. So with that said, this is kind of our current PCERS rating that we look at our net impact. This is a fun chart. And when we look at here on the bottom, it's kind of cut off a little bit, but 2020, roughly the sum impact. You'll see the beige area represents PCERS contribution expenses that we pay, the state share, and then the sum impact of the two is roughly $1,794,333. With that said, this is roughly, if we were to keep current conditions with fund balance, this is currently where we would lie if we kept things being currently status rolling over what we've prior committed to fund balance in previous years. With that said, I'd like to make some recommendations using our fund balance and having some fun. Healthcare, we said was a firm commitment at $2,640,775. That's a percentage base that at this time is pretty locked in, as well as our retirement healthcare costs at $1 million. So these two we want to continue making those recommendations and keeping current with. I would ask for consideration of that $8 million that we previously had for PCERS to release $2 million from that PCERS reserve and release $2 million from our PCERS reserve to allow for us for the creation of a cyber charter reserve fund. We know, and that's the reason why I'm going to read in very shortly a resolution for the unfair funding associated with cyber charter and charter schools. That has been very variable and a fixed cost, and one that is unfair, but one that we must currently prepare for. And release $1 million to our undesignated fund balance. At the end, that would leave our fiscal year 22 PCERS reserves at $6 million. And I do want to note that I remember our auditors, when they gave an overview and presentation, one of the things they did kind of point out was that we had a very healthy PCERS reserve, and we want to consider maybe reassigning some of that PCERS reserve that we currently had previously.
So when you're saying that you're going to release $2 million, is one of that two going to the cyber charter and the other one undesignated?
Yes.
And so my only concern about the $1 million undesignated, and I don't know what, I'm presuming you have to put it someplace. Maybe somebody over here on the other side could say something about it. But my concern about it is when it goes undesignated, then it just gets used up and we never really know what we used it up. Like, is there a way to not just tap into it regularly? I don't know. I'm not sure what I'm asking.
And typically we don't tap into it regularly. So when we say a fund balance that's undesignated, that could be used prior for offsetting some unexpected, you control what that money is done. You are the sole proprietors when it comes to any fund balance. You can move that undesignated and say, oh, we need to do a budget transfer and move that into this function or this object. Or that's getting a little heavy, we don't like that, let's move that into capital reserve. Or let's move that here into our cyber charter, or let's take that million. At any point, you as a collective 9 and a team, upon any, I can make a recommendation, but you can make a recommendation as well and move that. And Mr. Bard will be watching those accounts very closely to know as we move forward and make any recommendations to you as needed.
I guess I don't, if we can move this at any point in time, and we do, or Mike has brought up that we should talk about this every year, which is great that we're talking about this. I don't see any reason to move anything into undesignated.
I guess I would take probably another good $2 million out of the, if you go on to the next two slides. or maybe back one. A good, maybe a good forward two. Sorry. Next one. Where I still don't know why we would need 6 million in a Peters reserve. I would be fine with 4 in a Peters reserve, and maybe split that up, personally, with more toward a cyber charter reserve fund or something. I would like to see the numbers, and if we don't have them, it's fine. Like, the increase in Peters next year should be, it's going to go up, but it should be minimal compared to what it was 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 4 years ago. And we have consistently held at 8 million, and the increase has continued to go down. So I personally, I still think that's high. I will be fine with it, but I would still like to see that come down 2 million if we could reserve it someplace else. Just feels like it would be more, I don't know, it would feel like we'd have more integrity doing that.
I think you read my mind, because I will, in fiscal year 23 preliminary budget, be showcasing from 2007, maybe even earlier, all the PSERS rate, and then future PSERS rates based upon projection from their own website as to where we will be. So we kind of saw this, and then now we're kind of seeing a leveling off. Now, it's a high level off, but we're still seeing kind of a level off approach to it.
Can you go back to the slide before?
But that high level off is currently built into our budget.
Yes, sir.
So we don't need to have it reserved as much.
Yep, and I think what you're saying, I kind of moving forward, I think you'll see some recommendations also from our preliminary budget that may address your questions there as well.
Can you go back to the PSER slide? So which chunk of that is ours? What color?
The dark orange. And actually, what this chart represents.
Well, we're not budgeting for another one.
Sorry. So what this chart represents is each year the district spends money makes a contribution to the PSERS account on behalf of our employees, right? So it's a percentage of employment dollars that goes to the PSERS fund. That's the beige. So that's a negative impact overall. Half of that money is returned to us by the state. That's the green up, right? So you see it's approximately half. There's slight adjustments in there. So the net impact on the general fund budget on each year is the dark orange. So for each year, you can see there, starting in 2012, the net impact to the district on the general fund was dollars in, dollars out, negative $374,000, et cetera. So that's what that chart shows.
So if I can ask, is the orange under 2020, is that basically saying we are paying $1,794 a year toward PSERS? Actually, what we're paying for 2020 is actually over $4 million out. We're getting in approximately $2. So the net out to the district is 1.7 million.
But
we're holding in reserve in the past $8 million a year.
But that comes out of our regular budget, general budget, doesn't it? So the PSERS is already calculated in for each employee that goes out of the general budget, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So we are sitting on 8 million, just sort of hovering there, just in case we don't take out enough.
No, that is not true. Look, let's go back to the beginning. If you go back to years and you get down here to where it's $374,000, that was when we had started planning for this a couple years before that, because we were told this was going to happen. If you go back to the Rendell administration, they kicked the bucket down the road by saying, oh, we're not going to pay PSERS anymore, and somehow the stock market's going to pay for it. Well, that didn't happen, and we're all in this boat right now. When we started budgeting for this 10 or 15 years ago, we knew that we would be at $8 million right now. And we knew in 4 years that $8 million would be gone. So this has been planned for 10 years. So moving that money now doesn't make any sense because we are still going to spend that money. But we did have some years in the middle that worked out to our benefit where we were actually able to bank money because of healthcare, that we actually will probably make it to 2025 before we run out of money. So just moving this money around is something that was planned for way long ago, and it is falling exactly what they said would happen 10 years ago.
But I guess going back to my question, so if we're giving, I'm just round figure, $4 million, is that $4 million already budgeted in our general fund?
It is.
So essentially we're gaining 1.79
No.
million.
So how much money is our
stop.
budget over this year?
Can I please ask him
How
the
much money
question?
do we not have in income?
For fiscal 22, I believe the budgeted deficit was around $3 million, Dr. Fox?
That's correct.
Right. So we're losing
That's
$3 million
No,
that
but
we're
that's
not taking
I'm,
in.
I'm not talking about the whole budget. I'm talking about just this. Like just this, if we're giving $4 million to the state, but the state, and we budget that, and we get back $2 million,
And we
say.
budget that, yes, ma'am.
So we budget that also? So that's
Yes,
already
ma'am.
budgeted in as income? Okay. All right. All right. So I didn't, all right. So we're really, I understand now. So that,
In $1.7 million.
okay. All right.
We're spending.
We're spending 1.7 million.
We're spending $1.7 million that we're not bringing in. So you can only do that for so long. And that's why this money was banked.
But if that was the case, Phil, why is it
So
not moved?
we will-
If that was, hold on.
If everything sticks,
hold on, can I,
if
let me
everything,
ask-
no, let me say, if everything sticks at its normal, as normal as what's going on right now, and the state doesn't do anything, we'll be broke in 2025.
Okay, so let me ask a question. If that's the case, and we've been sitting in that $8 million for the past, going back on your chart, where did that come from? Where did that $8 million?
So the only reason we're still, because at one point we were at like 15, and luckily.
No, $8 million just in the Peasers alone.
Yeah, but we had other money that we were moving around every year.
Can I try to answer that?
Go ahead.
I believe what would happen is at the end of the year, our budget would, all the funds would come out and we would have like $2 million left in our budget. So it would go into the reserve and somebody would say, let's earmark that for Peasers because of these increases in Peasers. The reality is we could pay nothing to Peasers for the next 5 years, but that doesn't make sense because it's in our budget. I don't think we need $8 million sitting there if we decide not to pay Peasers. But that was my question all along, was at some point, you can't just have unmarked fund balance money. So we were always putting it in Peasers. And my question, in which the auditors picked up, is we no longer need to have all this money earmarked for Peasers. We should earmark it for cyber, which I think is a really great idea, or something else, because we really aren't expecting to need to dip into that $8 million to pay Peasers, because it is basically leveled out and we're basically able to do it within our budget.
How can you say that? We don't have a balanced budget. So we are dipping in $3 million. So if it's $1.5 million for cyber school and 1.7 for Peasers, that's where that $3 million deficit is coming from. So it is Peasers.
Here's what
and
I
if you
can
want to move
say.
half of it to cyber school, I'm okay with that,
But here's
because they're
what
not
I
going to
can
fix
say.
that
It
either.
doesn't matter. It just needs to be earmarked for something. And cyber school costs are going up. Peasers has leveled off. But Phil, for the last 12 years I've been on this school board, every single year I'm told in 5 years we're going to be broke and we're going to have no money. And lo and behold, every year, but I think 2, we've put money back into our reserves. So
we haven't done
that's,
that.
And I think a lot of
that's
that-
just the reality. But I think we need to earmark it for something. Since Peasers has leveled off, I don't think it makes sense, and I think the auditors agree, to keep putting it in Peasers when we have other costs going up that are unpredictable, like cyber charter schools. Just makes more sense.
So I think two things. I think first and foremost, the recommendations is you're setting fund balance, but it's not a permanent set. You have the ability to move fund balance as needed, and I want to. That's not a one and done situation. You have that ability as a collective board to move fund balance as needed. Second, I think as what was budgeted and the deficit, I want to emphasize it's because of the 9 of you. I think it's also because historically of the principals. I think historically of every person that works within Susquenita School District has fiscally and responsibly, not just spent because it was an item that was in there, but has done their prudence and responsibility to ensure that if it just because it was in, is it the timeliness? Do we need it at this particular point? Because remember, we're forecasting, and that's difficult, right? Because we're forecasting and even forecasting prior to the governor's budget and the Commonwealth's budget being proposed to us. So we're trying to get ahead of something when this particular, we may end up particularly with some additional subsidies from the state, hopefully. But we know hope right now is not a planning strategy.
So the 3 million that's a negative is a forecasted deficit. It may not be a deficit when we do our next audit, and it might be a surplus.
I think that's a fair statement, Mr. Carmo. I do. I think it will be a deficit. It's just a matter of maybe as we look, and I'll show a slide. I think that's going to show where we have always historically budgeted. You might have to use the vision because it's truncated a little bit on the slide. But where we ended up at the end. So there is that, what's predicted versus what ends up. Because again, there's a lot of variables, additional revenue that could come in, as well as fiscally pumping our brakes sometimes.
Phil, I just wanted to just say one thing, just so that we don't have community members overreact to, I think, what you said. Like, we are going to be debt-free as a district. And if all of our buildings, everything will be paid off in a matter of, 3 years or something. And
by 2025,
by
even with the new
and
with
you
the new
just
bank
said by
loan.
2025, we're not going to be able to pay our bills, and we're going to be living in a deficit, and all of our extra funds will be gone. And we're also now buying a piece of property in a turf field. So you might want to reword that differently, because if we're sitting on being in the hole, all of our extra money spent by 2025, and we're borrowing $3 million to build a turf field, then I might be not hearing things correctly.
If everything stays the same, will we be broke by 2025?
I don't. I'm sorry. I believe not. And I'm sorry, Mr. Board Member, Mr. Jones. I'm sorry. You are right. The debt. You gotta tell my wife that. Mrs. Jones. The fact of the matter is our debt service ends, as has been previously presented by our financial advisors. The debt service does end in 2025, even after the one-year note that the board previously approved at the last meeting. So that impact on the budget has been about $2.5 million, $2.7 million per year. And as you can see, that's substantially the amount of the budgeted deficit that we have had in the past couple of years. As Dr. Fox has said, there's been a lot of controls. The board has graciously provided its budget for us every year, and the administration, I think, wisely controls that very well on behalf of the community. So to answer your question, I don't think the district is going to be broken in a couple of years. It is going to be tight, and we continue to refine those forecasts every month. The people in the business office, and I've got temp written across my forehead because my days here are numbered, but the people in the business office have really done yeoman's work in making sure the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed this year. They've done a fantastic job of posting revenue so you can see what's coming in and where we are, and doing the same thing on the expenditure side so that this team here, Mr. Bard, myself, Dr. Fox, will be able to provide you in the next couple of weeks a more accurate forecast of where we believe we're going to end up in this particular year. And we've used a lot of the work that the auditing team has provided to us to refine our estimates for the end of the year. So we will work to provide those to you, and including what I heard the board members ask was to give an estimate of the actual PSERS total dollar spend for fiscal 22 and what we expect the total PSERS dollar spend to be for fiscal 23. That'll, I think, will allow you to make a good informed decision.
I appreciate that. And I will say, I would say largely due to Phil's leadership, we have been very fiscally conservative, and I feel have done a really great job, curtailing our spending, that we're we're in this place where we have to decide where we're going to put our money in the reserves. I just think putting it in Peters is not a good.
Can you tell my wife that too?
Yes.
So just going back to, real quick for my original question about the undesignated. So the undesignated is still going to be in the capital reserve fund, right? Is that correct? And then it's just not going to be earmarked for something in particular so that it could be used if we needed to do it? Is that what you're asking? Well, that's what he's asking us to do. I wanted to see if that's correct. Am I correct on
It is not. The capital reserve is separate.
Okay.
So cap reserve currently, and the undesignated is exactly what it is. Undesignated allows you as the board to move it and to use it accordingly. It's basically saying, I don't want to put it in category A, I don't want to put it in category B, or I don't want to put it in C. I want to keep it there and use it if, in fact, we may need to move it to capital reserve. And again, that is completely up to you. You can, as a collective group, say, that's great, Dr. Fox, but let's put that $1 million back in PSERS, or move that into capital reserve, or move that $1 million back into cyber. So now it's $2 million in that category. We are setting, I'm just providing recommendations. You set what that parameters are as a team. This is your fund balance. We serve at your pleasure, just like the preliminary budget. And I mean that. We're building it based upon the direction that you provide.
So the undesignated then is if all of a sudden in 3 months there's a $500,000 bill that we need to buy and it's not in our budget, we could take that out of our savings account, out of the undesignated amount, right?
That's a fair statement.
And,
yes, sir.
And some of those funds can't be touched once they're put into those for that year. Is that true?
They can be utilized and moved with your approval.
Okay, so again, this is pardon my ignorance here. I should know more about this. I thought I knew what I was talking about. So when I really don't. When we're working in our regular budget, our general budget, my understanding was this money was separate and apart from that. Is that true?
That is true.
Okay, and where does the capital reserve sit apart from this? Because I guess I kind of had this as part of that sort of rainy day area.
Great segue into, I think, another presentation slide that we'll segue into.
I'm not finished here yet, though.
Oh,
so
never mind.
Let's talk about health. Where do you see that going in the next 3 years? Because we were on a roll of getting $1 million, 1.7 one year, and a 700 back in credit one year. Now I know last year we spent money. Is it going to continue that? Are we looking at long-term health care in the consortium that's going to continue our rates to go up?
Our experience, I'll answer your last question first. We're expecting a 7% increase in premiums for fiscal 23 through the consortium. Our experience has been better than average for the other school districts. So it must be something in the water and the air that blows down from upstream, because our health is really good. So we're able to enjoy keeping our premiums down. The rest of the group, we're subject to those particular things. Dr. Fox and I did attend a meeting, so we're looking at ways to control our costs for fiscal 23 using similar mechanisms that other school districts used at our disposal. But we are looking at a face premium increase of 7%, which is less than 9 or 11% that they had mentioned in the fall. So I think we're doing pretty good in that respect. So our average spend in fiscal 23 looks to go up by 7%.
And what is, because I didn't look at it in the audit, what are they saying is our money that we don't have enough put away for the healthcare? Because we normally get a warning on that in the audit that we're short some money that we have held for healthcare.
Oh, okay. You're probably talking about two different things.
Okay.
There's the money that we have in the consortium is what Dr. Fox mentioned on the top bullet there, $2,640,775.
Okay.
That's the money that we hold in the consortium for future premiums. That is reserved in the consortium. We're good to go there. I think the money that you're talking about, all the warnings and everything, the GASB notices are for other post-benefit other post-employment benefits, OPEB,
Okay.
where I want to say the accumulators, I can't think of the name of the auditing group that comes in and they make an assessment of what you may have to pay in the future for future retirement costs way down the road, and it's in the millions of dollars. It looks ridiculous. It's a paper number. I know that doesn't make a lot of sense, but it is something that it's so far out in the future that the end is wavering.
But don't they normally give us a number in the audit that like we should have $1 million this year planned for that, or do they only give you the pie in the sky number?
I'm not familiar with the number that you're looking for, and I forgot to bring a copy
Okay,
of the audit.
that's fine.
But
But you don't see that changing from year to year?
Not significantly, no.
Okay.
But what I will do is for Tuesday's meeting, I will write this down, and we will provide the answer for you.
Okay. So before we go to the next slide, I'm okay with moving this money around if you don't want to keep it all in pieces. I just don't like undesignated money. If you want to move half of it to cyber school, and I'm fine with that, but I just don't like it to be undesignated. It makes it too simple to move around, I think. Someone comes with an idea, we need $500,000 for this, and then the board says, oh, we got this undesignated fund. That makes it simple. I like it to be a little harder.
I am, noted. And we will adjust the undesignated and ensure that on April 12th's recommendation that it reflects not placing an undesignated. So let's take a look and walk through our capital reserve. So capital reserve is a separate, not continually part of the overall fund balance of $15 million, but our total capital reserve available for fiscal year 22-23 is $1,482,178. We use capital reserve, right, for capital improvement projects. We do that as part of our facilities plan in 5 years. And we've discussed several items from our previous maintenance and facilities presentations and planning throughout the course of, I believe it was in February, we had a presentation, and we had one earlier in October to showcase some areas that may need attention. So, oops, I just deleted something. Looking ahead for capital reserve plan use, this is our preliminary budget plan use. You'll see that we have planned use for roughly $395,000. Now, the numbers don't reflect that when you look at it, correct? Because you're going to see some offsetting expenses versus revenue because of our abilities to utilize ESSERS 3 and the approval for ESSERS 3, which will be to roof and weather guard certain aspects of our middle school and high school roof, and that currently is needed, and that's been It's yes, thank you. Approved at this time. So the other is based upon. So we look at our elementary school replacement floor project that should complete, which is exciting. Our phase 2. That should be actually phase 3 of 3, I believe, at the elementary school to complete our flooring projects for replacement. Parking lot ceiling, continuing to. I believe it's 3 of 3, but I'll get that specific answer. It is 2 of 3? I'm wrong. Okay. Replacement of a hot water heater. This is our last hot water heater to replace. Okay. The middle school classroom floor replacements in our choir and faculty room would be carpet, and our band room being vinyl. The potential for high school and middle school gym bleacher replacements, and roof weather guard, as we had stated. So that comes out. The total capital reserve remaining balance would be $1,086,578 if, in fact, all of these items were approved in our preliminary budget, moving over to final budget. So our next steps, we'll make some adjustments and modifications, removing any undesignated fund balance and placing that appropriately into either remaining that in PSER. So I'll kind of need where your thoughts are right now as to where you would like to see that undesignated $1 million. Do you want to leave it in PSERs or place it in cyber charter? And I'm going to turn it over now.
So can we put that in the capital reserve?
You absolutely can.
Would that be a good idea?
Is
How
capital
much-
reserve harder to move?
How much do we currently have on?
You can still just move capital reserve too?
How much do we currently have unassigned? You know, in our general fund. Huh? Do we know how much we currently have unassigned in our fund balance?
Currently unassigned right now in our fund. So I believe it is $3,654,988 is unassigned. Noting full well that right now, if we were to end the fiscal year 22 right now, we would need approximately 2.8 million of that to be used to offset revenue and expenditures based upon the approved budget from last year. So reducing that will leave $854,988 in unassigned fund balance.
So given that information, are you still uncomfortable with $1 million unassigned when we currently are sitting on $3 million unassigned?
It's not really unassigned because it's already spent. It's already spent technically in the budget, and we're going to hit that number. So it's not like we're going to end up. It's not going to be like in the past where we end up with an extra $1 million at the end of the year. That's not happening.
Would you feel, Phil? Would you feel more comfortable if that money was put into capital reserve, which would still be technically unassigned but harder to get at?
Yeah, I'm okay with capital reserve too because my understanding was I thought that couldn't be moved as easy, but if it can be, then.
Once it's assigned, it cannot be moved without a board vote. So anything, so it just can't be. I mean, anything can be, even at unassigned levels, it can't be moved without a board vote either. It's not, it's not that,
Well,
even though it can't be assigned, even though it's unassigned, it still can't be moved without a board vote because you guys exercise the control over the checks and over the budget. So even at that level, it couldn't be moved. But if capital reserve, it couldn't be moved from capital reserve to a building project without a board vote.
Let me ask you something about the unassigned, just so I understand. So with the unassigned, though, you need that. Let's say it's $2 million to pay off the budget at the end of the year.
Right.
Can that be moved as simply as us approving the treasurer's report?
Yes.
That's why I don't like unassigned.
That is really the only.
Good point. Very good point.
Function, and also it's an accounting feature too that when we file the budget report, when we mark in the budget report how much your unassigned fund balance is at the end, it can only be a percentage of your general expenses for it to be proper for the.
And the assigned stuff takes 2 votes. Is that kind of because we'd have to approve it in the treasurer's report and approve it prior to that?
Right. That's why it's committed and the assigned are 2 different.
Okay.
So let me ask this. Actually, this is Mr. Carmo's question, but I'm more wordy than he is. Like, could we designate now that we're buying this property? We keep talking in the future. We may build on this property. We may make fields on this property. Could we designate some of that money toward a building fund for use in the future on some of this new property?
Absolutely. You could do one of 2 things. We can move it to where that, to me, is a capital improvement. So it could be in capital reserve, or you could create a whole nother designation of a fund and call it future debt service.
I would be in favor of taking $2 million from PSERS, leaving it at 4, and creating a future debt service fund, but I would support whatever the board decides.
Would you like me to us to create and put on for April 12th future debt service, or keep it in capital reserve, because it could be one and the same, but it is at your discretion.
I think if we move it to capital reserve, then it just leaves us the opportunity to not have more line items and more things that we have designated money into.
The only problem I have with the capital reserve is if we want to recarpet something and we think, oh, look, we have $3 million in capital reserve, we can, like as if I put money in my budget all in the Christmas fund, my wife would be like, oh, yes, I can get Blair a Mustang for Christmas or whatever. So I think we have a 5-year plan for a reason, and that plan is to systematically spend our capital reserves in such a way that we're careful. So That's the only issue I would have with
How,
that.
how do we otherwise replenish that capital reserve? How does it get in there?
It gets in there through movement of fund balance.
Okay, so I'm like, I mean, obviously, like that was higher, I think, when I started on the board, and it's now, we're spending it. How do we, if we don't otherwise put some money in it, how do we even have a 5-year plan?
So prior to the last 3 years, we had surpluses, so we were dumping money in there that we were spending every year
Okay.
to cover it.
Okay.
So yes, when you came on the board, it was probably $3 million, but we don't have surpluses anymore. So eventually, that fund will be zero. If right, and like it's when it's something simple like that, like you said, Mike, they can throw carpet on, and we approve the carpet, and that money's gone.
Well, anytime there is it shouldn't just be we throw it on. I understand what you're saying.
Okay,
it,
so
it needs to be
with the current
spent-
administration, I'm not as worried about you just
needs to
throwing
be-
it on.
We would need to say we recommend use of capital reserve fund, and with your approval, and it would take board action where it's not just the ability to use within the planned budget. Unless it was already planned for in the preliminary budget that you vote on with the earmark of the chart that I just demonstrated, which would be embedded if you approved the fiscal year 23 budget.
So like this 300,000 you were just talking about, if we approve the budget, we're approving that to be spent out of the capital reserve. And when you're approving the budget, not everybody just totally understands that. Because when you
I'm hearing it as a new business kind of administrator that I'm not going to allow different things like that to be approved through that type of thing. So I'm taking it. I mean, this is a good lesson for me as being new to understand what the board mindset is moving forward. Because every board has a different mindset.
By the way, welcome.
Can you write me a note for my wife also?
So can I just throw, I know we've been talking about like moving stuff and PSERS and our deficit, but I just want to throw a word out there. I know we've looked at different wages and salaries in the past, and I think one thing that we need to caution is that something that we need to be looking at moving forward, knowing that we have certain vacancies that haven't been able to be filled, and what is the market competition going to look like moving forward, and does that need to be taken into consideration to continue to be competitive, and would that definitely have an impact on what we can contribute to PSERS, that we would need to take more money out of that fund balance to contribute towards PSERS before we start moving stuff around. And I think there needs to be a more thorough analysis as to where we want to go as a board and as an administration before we start making these plans and then have to backpedal on those.
Well, I think that's well said, and I think there's always right now we're going to see a hyperinflated, economy associated with rising costs. But I think that when we look at positions, when we look at I would say our teaching positions and our administrative positions, those are Act 93 and associated with the collective bargaining agreement. But when you look at support staff and instructional aid positions, I think we continually look at that, and we're doing a presentation this evening, so it's a good segue into that tonight. I think we can also look at making some recommendations of some other, I would say, ancillary and fringe style benefits that are not necessarily benefited when we say healthcare, but benefits such as additional, I'll segue in, additional paid time off, because currently right now we for our instructional aides we give 3, and giving 5 I think would be attractive to some as well, because again, I think when you look at it, having a week to care for family and having a week if you're not feeling well. And I think another thing that we might be able to do as well is we see sometimes the fluctuation of our hourly employees. Anytime that there's a delay, such as a 2-hour delay based upon weather, and being able to make them whole during the times of a delay, I think would give a constant where their net take-home wouldn't fluctuate in accordance. So those are a couple recommendations I'd like to make. But then, absolutely, we always want to continually study, and there's some work being done right now I believe, by some local school districts, because we're all kind of in a collective group together and having those discussions of what that impact would be. So I think at this point, if everybody is okay, I will work with Mr. Bard and work with Mr. Medina to take your, what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, is still, again, I want to, and you'll hear me say this again, I want to honor your commitment to PSERS, because there is some expenses that we can utilize with our PSERS reserve, because you've saved for that. And I think releasing allows you the opportunity to put back where and when it's needed. So you have that flexibility to be able to utilize. While we're at a whole and honest discussion, I do, and I think it's prudent just to make mention that, we are looking at, again, a continuation, right, of expenses and revenue. And we need to find a way to bring that nexus or that gap and continually find a way to make that closer and closer. And I think that's an ongoing discussion that we as a collective team need to have. And again, we are fiscally prudent and responsible. And you'll see that within the pretenses of the presentation and of the budget coming on with our second preliminary budget. It's what I would consider lean, right? When we look at purchasing ground beef, is that the right thing? It's 97% lean. It's about as lean as it's going to get, but nevertheless, we'll showcase that, and you'll see that. So we'll work up. What I'm hearing, if again, is having a $1 million for a cyber charter, and again. That allows us to reserve some of those funds. Our advocacy continues, and you'll see that this evening. And our advocacy in terms of having and ensuring that we get some type of governmental relief from our legislators, on the cyber charter monies going out, because it is an unfair formula that was developed. And you'll see in the 24 years since cyber charter, the cyber charter law was enacted in 1997. Just to give you, and I'll read it in, school districts have spent since 1997 nearly $2.2 billion. So there is a lot of money coming out of school districts, and there needs to be some reform associated with that. But in the absence of that, we need to prepare. So I would recommend we do the $1 million, as you had stated, for cyber charter. And what I'm hearing is perhaps a $1 million reserve for future debt services. And with the idea that you can move that fund at your discretion back to PSERS, back to capital reserve, to cyber charter, based upon your collective recommendations and based upon the information that we will provide you on a regular basis that you need in order to be able to make those informed decisions. That was having fun with fund balance. Oops, I just muted myself.
I hope you can make the preliminary budget as fun.
I'm going to try, sir. So speaking of having fun, we want to bring alive summer at Susquenita. So at this particular time, I have Miss Krista Snyder, our Assistant to the Superintendent for Academic Operations, talking about bringing and, again, expanding some of the great opportunities that we want to bring and make our campus alive here for the summer.
Good evening. We are really excited to talk to you this evening about, he wants me to, Dr. Fox. Yeah, we are going to play this and move this around a little bit, but we're really excited to talk to you this evening about what's looking to shape up to be a really exciting summer at Susquenita. And I just included this quote from author Sarah Dessen. I think it's just, we know summer, how the kids feel, how the teachers feel, and the staff feel. It's just really a time of possibility, and that's sort of what we are looking at this as an opportunity for us to offer new things as we move forward. And of course, I always like to say, there's always room for improvement. We're going to keep building this, and every year, hopefully, it will get a little bit better. But that's what we're going to talk to you about tonight. And I'd like to start talking to you a little bit about professional learning opportunities and the 2022 catalog for the summer trade days for our teachers and staff. And I did put a color copy in front of each of you, if you wouldn't mind, and that is actually a draft copy of what we are working on in the office. And we just wanted you to see tonight some of the way this is shaping up. We're actually getting a lot of sessions together for our teachers and staff, and we're really excited about some of the offerings. And really, this catalog covers trade day professional learning opportunities that are optional for our staff. So we know that in our school calendar, we offer them a choice of trading 2 days over the summer that they can then obviously have off 2 days during the calendar year. So it's definitely optional, but we wanted to show you how this is shaping up, and we're really excited. We think as we move through, we're going to be adding some other opportunities that we're still kind of working and finalizing. And then also we're really excited this year, we're going to add some interactive video clips and things for teachers and staff to take a look at as they're choosing their trade day options. So that's going to be added as well. The final catalog is actually set to be released to teachers and staff later this month, and it's really going to offer a lot of synchronous and asynchronous opportunities that are available for professional growth and Act 48 credits. So we know the last couple of years it's been a lot of asynchronous opportunities, so we see value in both. We're keeping both in the trade day catalog, but we want to add a lot of, kind of go back to our in-person offerings as well. Teachers and staff definitely will have the chance to choose their trade day options prior to the end of the school year. And our opportunities will actually be offered during the window of June 6th through August 10th. So there's definitely a big window of time over the summer for teachers and staff to be able to take their professional learning sessions. And of course, they're able to choose more than just the 2 trade days if they wish. So please feel free to take a look at our draft copy at your leisure. And if you have any questions, please let us know. But we're going to be working on it definitely through Easter. And after Easter, hopefully, we'll be able to get that out to staff.
Can I just say, I have been waiting for 15 or more years to see something like this here. And I know you're just getting started. This is the most robust, the most diverse offerings that we've offered that I can remember. And it's phenomenal and amazing. So thank you, and thank you to the team. I think this is, I'm like jumping up and down inside. Our teachers deserve this. Thank you, all of you. And I hope also that we're doing something really special for our teachers that are presenting and involved, because there's nothing better than teachers being able to showcase their talent to other teachers and develop professional development. Yeah. I just cannot say enough. And I know it's just this, it's amazing. So I just, thank you. And I hope we're doing something amazing for our teachers that are doing something.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much. Yeah, we couldn't do it without them, and we really appreciate all of the teachers and staff that actually put in their time to put in some descriptions for us and put in offerings for their fellow colleagues over the summer. So yeah, we will keep working on this. Moving on in the presentation, I just wanted to pass it over to Dr. Herman, who's going to talk to you about extended school year.
Thank you, Ms. Snyder. Good evening, everyone. So extended school year is a service that students with IEPs receiving special education services are potentially eligible for. It's based on 7 criteria outlined in the PA State Code, Chapter 14.132 for fun reading. And the IEP teams need to consider those 7 criteria, and the students need to be eligible under 2 or more of those criteria. For summer 2022, though, we have nearly 50 students that are eligible, which is nearly double the amount of students than last summer. So we are going to partner with the CAIU to provide services, which is different than historical as well. That's kind of out of necessity for a few variables that we had to pivot and account for. The locations then are not on campus either. So it will be one of 3 off-campus locations, and that's based on the type of support that the student is required to receive in their IEPs. ESY will operate 8:30 to 11:30, 3 days a week for 6 weeks, spanning from the last week of June to the first week of August. May I answer any questions related to that?
Yeah, are we providing transportation?
Yes.
And are we paying CAIU for those services?
Yes, we are.
When a student is eligible, do they have to attend?
No.
They don't.
So the 50 eligible, later in May, what we'll do is we'll start contacting all of the families to confirm who will attend and who will not attend. That number, if I had to estimate, probably drop by another 20 students or so that won't attend over the summer. For example, I had to send out family notification yesterday because the IU is sending out their letters, and I didn't want our families obviously to hear it for the first time from the IU. And I already had a phone call today with a family about who's not going to send their child due to the change. So.
And is the 50, you said is about double what there was in the eligible last year. Is that just a COVID-related thing, do you think, or?
That's a good question. I don't know if I necessarily have a definitive answer to that. I think it's, we are clarifying exactly what ESY is and how you qualify for it. Within the IEP writing system that we use, we've created a snippet that the teachers just need to import, and then they just read through it, versus in the past, it was kind of not facilitated or guided that way. It was more of just a conversational piece, which it still is a conversational piece, but now there's prompts. The IEP team can look at it, read it, think about it. So I think it's a combination of things. COVID obviously is always going to be here for a little bit, but I don't know if I have a good answer.
In the past, we were offering extended school year here on campus.
Correct.
Okay, why the change this year?
So we rely on our staff. They obviously get paid, so I don't want to say the word volunteer, but we rely on our staff to step forward and say that they will come in over the summer and continue that instruction. We did have a few staff members come forward and do that, and before we even knew we were getting to 50, it was still not enough staff for the number of students that we had.
So correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Herman, it's not, and I learned this, it's not just, so if I have 50 students and I want a class ratio of 15, I can't just divide the amount of teachers we need by 50 to come up with a small group class size, because it's based upon individual goals and individual needs. So it really could come down to a teacher maybe working with 3 students or even maybe 2, depending on the program needs of the student. Is that accurate?
That's absolutely accurate. You could have a student that has a really high level of service, really profound need, and you can have a student that has comparatively a less profound need. But both are still eligible, and those services look vastly different. There's a student that I know will only receive speech and language support, so that's obviously not a teacher, that needs to provide that service. Only a speech and language pathologist is going to be able to provide that service. So there's some variables like that we just can't account for this summer that we could in the past.
Thank you.
All right, I think I'm handing it over to Mrs. Comp.
Thank you.
All right, let's talk about Susquenita Elementary School. So some of our teachers aren't available for ESY because they're going to be doing some pretty amazing things that you see up here on the screen. So we don't want them to work all summer. We have made that very clear. While we embrace their help and want them there, we also know that it's a time for them to refresh, rest, sharpen the saw, right? So we have our tried and true SOAR program. It stands for Summer Opportunities for Academic Review. SOAR program, we run this is a program that we run through Susquenita Elementary School the last 3 weeks of July. And our students come based on teacher recommendations. So our teachers right now are filling out a Google form, and they are looking at students who could benefit from a little summer refresh and time to just prepare, get those skills back, and ready for the year. They run this like a camp-like atmosphere. It's very fun, lots of games, focusing on reading, math skills in a really creative and fun way. The next one that we have there that you see is, I'm going to jump down to Early Birds. This is new, and we are very excited about Early Birds. This is going to be a kindergarten experience, or should I say a pre-kindergarten experience. Yes, or today and tomorrow, we have 120 new kindergartners coming to visit Susquenita Elementary School. And they are a fun bunch, but they need a lot. And a lot of them have not had the preschool opportunities that kids in the past have had due to the pandemic. So we want to give them that foot in the door and that boost to really get ready for kindergarten. So they went home with a Save the Date created by our director, Miss Lisa Perkins, to share information about Early Birds. Sorry. And basically during this program, it's 6 days. This will happen in August. They'll come in, they'll get acquainted with the school, they'll have time for a snack, maybe a little bus trip. They'll get to some reading, math, again, very fun, getting ready for kindergarten activities, learn how to navigate our hallways, get acquainted with the school, and just everything that we do at Susquenita Elementary School. Sorry.
I'm excited about it too.
I know, it's really fun.
How many days of an experience are the kids going to get?
It's 6 days, and they come in, it's 2 hours, so a short chunk of time just to get their foot in the door and start getting them prepared. So we think this will be a really nice way to start this program, and we have some teachers on board to help really get that going. It runs, the dates are August 2nd to 4th, and then the 9th to the 11th. So we've got something in July, we talked about something in August. I'll jump back a little bit to our STEAM Adventure Camp. Very excited about this one as well. Ms. Sarah Bear is working with our K to 4 students, and you'll learn a little bit more about this later, but they're having our STEAM camp for kiddos in June, and it's a 1-week camp just really getting into that science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, and how to put those things together and learn and create and investigate and do all the wonderful things that learning should do. So a great experience for our students to be a part of. Anyone can sign up to be a part of. Those 3 programs that you just heard about are all free to our students to take part of. Families do not pay for them. SOAR, we do provide transportation from the town centers. It's something I think you should know. It's the only one that provides transportation at this time. The others, families will have to transport, but it's an opportunity that didn't exist before, and we're excited to bring to our community. You have the professional learning catalog, so you can see in there a lot of the professional learning and things being prepared by our teachers and staff. And then I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Snyder to talk a little bit about the CAIU opportunities as well.
Sure, we're actually partnering with a capital area intermediate unit to provide some summer camp opportunities. So I would say for the past maybe 5 years, the CAIU has provided in our IU region different camp opportunities that have just grown every summer. And we're really excited that they are going to hold a couple camps on our campus this summer. We're looking at July for that, but then also our families also have the opportunity to look at the entire catalog of summer camp opportunities that are available in the area as well. So that would be for grades K to 4 for this group.
Ms. Snyder, I'd like to go back to the trade day opportunities.
Sure.
Is there anything specifically for counselors?
Yes, there is in there a counselor day that we're going to work on the Chapter 339 plan and work through updates and taking a look at that piece as well. And then also we're going to be embedding some lessons from Smart Futures, which is a tool that we're going to be using for career evidence as well.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Oh yeah, actually we do have at the elementary, our counselor Andrew Schaefer runs our PBS High Five program, and they'll be doing a day as well to kind of work through some of those changes and updates for the school year.
can I just again say thank you? Like, thank you. Like, I feel like so much we have been so reactive in talking at this time of the year about summer school and remediation, and you're bringing proactive things to our school community that I believe are going to cause those other things not to be as necessary. So thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and safe to say, you know, when we talk about the middle school and high school, the summer, you know, school opportunities are still available. We still have students that we need to serve, and just like with our SOAR program, sort of identifying those students that need some extra supports and offering that service to them. But you're right, I feel like these opportunities are going to help, you know, maybe decrease some of those numbers, you know, in the future. But again, as I said earlier, it's a building experience. We're starting with these two, you know, major opportunities, and we'll move from there.
But we still will have summer school, right? Yeah.
Yes, Dr. Rivers.
Yes.
In a perfect world, we wouldn't need it.
Yeah, we'll need to have that opportunity.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We need to have that opportunity too, yeah.
We have to have that. Yeah.
I'm sorry I'm talking so much. I'm waxing philosophical, but when we hired Dr. Fox, you know, one of the things that we wanted was someone who would basically take their foot off the throat of the administration and the teachers and empower people to reach within and develop and do what they're supposed to do. And we're seeing that happen. And we're seeing our administrators and our teachers flourishing and just going above and beyond. We don't even know what we need, but the talents and things that they have. And you can actually spend your time actually doing things for children. And we're just seeing that happen. I'm seeing that happen. I'm just very grateful.
Oh, I love the presentation because it kind of looks like a menu. And so I'm like, I just want to go. I'm like, Mr. Medina, like, I think I just want to go to one of these. I mean, honestly, it's very, it's, well, they don't want to know what I'm going to talk to them about. Not at elementary school anyway. But no, I think if it's presented to parents in this same way, it's very engaging, I think. And it's just really, it draws them in, I think, to want to be involved in it as opposed to marketing it sort of as summer school. You know, I think it looks like it's fun, you know.
And I feel like this is like our first step, and we're definitely going to be working on the PR, you
Yeah.
know, with the IU, doing some different things with our own internal camps. So that is coming, you know, definitely this month.
So I do want to give kudos. Thank you, Ms. Snyder, and thank you to all our principals and our team, and most importantly to our teachers. You know, when we talk about creative ideas and being a part of it, we wouldn't be able to do these things without our teachers. Willing to take the time in the summer to continue and to engage and provide those meaningful experiences. And we're thankful for, honestly, for the ability to use ESSER's funding for this and to make it be able to be cost effective and free to our families at this time because of the utilization of ESSER's funding.
Definitely, thank you. So the middle school, Mr. Black, I don't know if you want to say a few words. Yes, I certainly did, Mr. Black.
You're always ready, sir. You're always ready.
He is always ready.
Yeah, ours isn't as fun as the elementary, but like speaking like what
the next slide will help too.
Yeah. Speaking what Dr. Jones said though too, like for our teachers, and we'll talk about summer school. I think that's my slide. Yeah, see, I don't even have half of this stuff because I've been working on other stuff. So that is a fun slide. Miss Snyder can talk about all that. I'll talk about the other stuff. But like you said, with our teachers, we have a thing that's going to benefit our students next year. We have a group of teachers that have signed up for the PBIS program. Mm-hmm. So we're going to take from what the elementary is doing, make it a little more, I want to say, grown up for our middle school kids. And so I feel like sometimes we're always harping on what we're not doing, but we're not those kids that are the 97.5% of the kids that are doing everything right every day never get recognized. So this is something we can put in there where we're recognizing those students as well as and kind of shining a light on what we're doing right at the middle school, and hopefully that progresses to the high school and they can take some of those behaviors with them there and make for a more smooth transition. But for mine, I'll talk about the summer school, and if you want to talk about these then.
Sure.
So summer school is different than middle school. So in high school, like Mr. Rubish says, it's more advanced because you need the credits to graduate. With the middle school, you don't need any credits. Technically, you won't even need to have summer school, but that's not very productive for a student if they struggle throughout the year and didn't get the grades or aren't mature enough or ready to go to the next grade without some help in the summer. So our teachers just did it. They put a spreadsheet together. I think I'm going to say 10 to 15 kids right now are looking like they're close. Like 5 are definite in. There's the other 10 are on the bubble. Like if they get some grades here. And I think the other aspect of what goes on in our summer school is what happened throughout the school year for this. Like say we have a young kid that's been in and out with some anxiety or mental health issues, and then the fourth marking period they get a full marking period and they show, hey, they are ready for that next grade. then that's something we have to take into consideration as well, because it's not going to benefit them to hold them back a year whenever it was a struggle to get there, and they finally are feeling in the groove and got it together. So the way our summer program works this year, we're only offering math and English because we don't have, and it's all through Canvas, so we're not paying an outside service to do this for us. So it's going to start June 13th, run 5 weeks. Monday through Wednesday is going to be in person. We have 3 of our teachers that are doing it, and a 4th that if we need help that can do it. And Tuesday and Thursday will be students would have, after learning something on Monday, they would have a Canvas assignment to do with a teacher available with an hour, from 10 to 11. I want to say, I can't remember off the top of my head. That teacher will be available to answer questions. Come to school on Wednesday, and then Thursday the same thing. They'll do it on Canvas. I believe ELA's first from 8:30 to 9:45, and then math will be second, 10:15 to 12 or somewhere around there. And there's no transportation for that, so that'd be the parents providing the transportation. There is a cost to it, and if anybody, the public's still listening, those letters will go out in a few weeks as we figure out what kids really, as we get the 4th marking period kind of sorts itself out and we figure out where we're going. But like I said, Ms. Snyder can talk about some of these opportunities, but we have a lot of stuff and going on with Dr. Jones, what Dr. Fox says, lets us have that opportunity and to build those teams with the teachers and let the teachers see what our vision is, but kind of make the path to get there, right? So they have that buy-in and say, hey, we all got together. It wasn't a directive, I want to say. It was, hey, I need some teachers on this committee, and I'm not short of volunteers in the middle school. Everybody's willing to volunteer, has great ideas. Mr. Ward just got here a couple months ago. He's already got a discipline committee put together, which we're going to do different things of, if this occurs, what does it look like? So there's more of a structure to it. It's not more, well, 5th grade does this, 6th grade does that. There's more of a structure. So and it's it's all teacher driven. We show them the vision and where we want to go, but it's driven by them and with some of our input here and there, but mostly teacher driven and giving them that buy-in and that control in the kind of the middle school and that they have some sort of say.
Yeah, I think it's really great, Mr. Black. Have a team ready to go for our professional learning, one of the trade days, to work on just getting things finalized and ready for our kickoff year for PBIS at the middle school. So it's something that they've been working really hard on this year. But definitely just to kind of branch off, we are still offering STEAM Adventure Camp to our students in grades 5 through 8. So we're working on publicizing that piece soon and kind of putting a call out for teachers to help us. And again, we will have some summer camps through the IU for grades 5 through 8 and in the building as well. Yeah, so that's middle school.
All right, thank you. So in addition to some of the professional learning opportunities, and one thing Mr. Black mentioned is about behaviors at the middle school transitioning to the high school, is something we've started working on closely, making a focused plan of helping those students transition from 8th grade to 9th grade to be more successful, making the 8th grade year mimic closer to the 9th grade, so it's less of a shock once they get there. So that's something we're going to continue working on, bring some teachers in this summer. In addition, we are also offering our traditional summer school for those students who need the credit recoveries. That's done through an online format. Applications will go out in May once we get closer towards the end of the year, but students will go live with the online format in the middle of June to go to the end of July. They're required to come in 1 day a week on Tuesdays, and we have teachers in there to assist to do. And we also have teachers available Wednesday if a student needs an extra day to do their work, or if they're not maintaining a certain satisfactory level of progress, to come in that Wednesday. Using that format and using an online program gives them the flexibility. We've had students complete the entire course in a matter of a week or two, just so they wouldn't have to come in anymore. But it's a way that they can get back on pace when they return in the fall. And that does cost. We don't have the cost set yet, but there's a monetary amount that families do pay.
Thank you. The next slide, then. So just to kind of sum up some of our Blackhawk summer plans, we just want to let you know that we are trying to make things as personalized as possible, that options are available for varied interests, and just to be flexible, that they're spread out over the summer months. Options are available for teachers and staff to work off campus as well with those asynchronous opportunities. And really, we're just growing, as always. We want to hear everyone's ideas, and we will continue just to keep improving this as we move forward. So really the rest of our slides are to thank the awesome administrators that we have working here that have, contributed to the presentation and just trying to get things shaped up for our summer programs. Thank you.
Great job, everybody. Thank you. And our next presentation for discussion is one that I'm extremely excited about as well. So Ms. Snyder, Dr. Herman, and as well as Ms. Miller are here, our coordinator of human resources, to talk about our instructional aides. They're such a valuable part of the Susquenita School District team and what they do the day in and day out for our students. And we want to showcase what they do. And also use this as an opportunity that if anybody is in the community is listening and has an interest, to please don't hesitate this evening. Please reach out to Ms. Miller at directly, and we will begin that interview with you.
Is your email up here yet? We have to put your email address up there.
So at this time, I'll turn it over.
All right. I think I'm starting with this, so thank you. This slide I would like to start with is semantics. I just want, when we talk throughout this presentation, that we all understand, we all have the same understanding of what exactly we're looking at here. I think right now, if we ask a variety of stakeholders, who is this person in the building, you're going to get a different name. You're going to hear instructional aide, you're going to hear high-risk aide, you're going to hear personal care assistant, you're going to hear a variety of terms depending on who you ask. And those are all great, and those are all used across school districts, for sure. But the state really defines them with one word, and that's a paraprofessional. So I'm going to use that word today when I'm moving through my slides, at least. And I think it's an important term because if we break it up, right, and we look at the prefix para there, we know that that means alongside or an extension of. And so they're an extension of the professional, and the professional is our teaching staff. So they're an extension of our professional staff and not necessarily, not directly, an extension of our students. They're there to help the students, right? I'm not saying that. But they're not a student's human to follow them around or do certain things, right? They're there to make sure that everything is running smoothly so that the students can access and fully benefit from what the professional staff has created as the learning experience. And so in addition to that, the state not only just gives us that word, but they give us standards on how to become what they call qualified. And so there are 10 standards. I'm not going to read all the small bullet points underneath. I'm just going to read those top, the overarching what are the standards. And the first one there is just the foundation of special education, the development and characteristics of learners, individual learning differences, instructional strategies. I'm going to go a little fast here, so I apologize. If anyone wants us to stop, just please yell. Learning environments and social interactions, language, instructional planning, assessment, professional and ethical practice, which is a really big standard because you can see there it's going to go into the next slide. And then the final slide there, collaboration. And so to become qualified, you need 20 hours per school year, which would run July 1 to June 30. And so all of our paras go through that. All of our paras complete 20 hours of training. They have their certificates. They submit that into my office, and we track that, and we ensure that we're all on a good pace. That first link there, the knowledge and skill development for special education paraprofessionals and PA, is a link where there are some prefabricated trainings that our paraprofessionals can use. Of course, we could provide our own, and we do at times for part of that here. But that's also obviously a really good resource because it's straight from the state. And then the second link there is as a checklist. And when they apply to be called qualified, that competency assessment checklist is the evidence. And so it's not just saying, yes, this paraprofessional knows standard 1. We have to write in there and check off how we know that that paraprofessional actually does. And then we submit that in for approval. So all of that's really to say that if we look at maybe a language change or an interaction change or relationship change with this group, we all value them for sure. Ask any principal and teacher that interacts with them. They help run and move things in the buildings that otherwise would not if they were not there. And I think we got to value that, and I think we got to show that value. And I think, when Ms. Miller talks a little bit about some of the PR side of where we're headed, we highlight that value publicly. I hope that is a good motivation for some people in the community to come on board here at Susquenita. So I'm going to hand it over now to Ms. Miller to talk more about the demographics of who we currently have on board and so forth. But if there's any questions about this piece, I'm happy to answer them either now or at the end of the presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Herman. So, as you know, our paraprofessionals do a lot for not only our staff, but also for our students. They support our district in numerous ways that we cannot even foresee the value that they bring to the district. But I think it's important when looking on how we can attract these individuals to the district, it's important to look at a snapshot currently of what we have. So looking at our vacancy, sorry, I keep going with this. We are about half capacity of the vacancies that we have for our current paraprofessionals. Obviously, every single one of our buildings have a need. Looking at our pie chart here, we see that a majority of our staff are located in our elementary school and then middle school, followed by our high school. So looking again at our age, our staff, for our paraprofessionals specifically, you can see that many of our staff members have longevity, which is a testament to our district and our culture here for keeping our employees as long as we have. So the average age of our paraprofessionals is 51 years old. They have been with the district for probably about 7 years on average. We have recently had 2 new hires for this year, not including our one that is coming up on the agenda next week. So that's always exciting to bring new people into our district. So when we look at these demographics, they may not be as positive as we would like to see. So what is our solution to that? How are we going to fix this? How are we bringing in these individuals that provide a tremendous support to our district? We are partnering with our communications coordinator in doing a PR campaign called It Matters. This will highlight individuals within our paraprofessional staff, a testament to why they have been with the district. Why does it matter to be a Blackhawk? Why are you in education? It matters to our students because. So the idea behind this is highlighting 2 to 3 of our paraprofessionals, explaining why they've been with the district for so long, why this and essentially posting this out to various channels on social media to try to draw and showcase the district. I don't know why this is cutting out. Maybe this one? Yeah, there we go. Much better. But that pretty much sums up what we're trying to do, is essentially putting out this campaign. I know there has been many campaigns in the past, but again, taking a new approach, being creative in this to highlight our individuals. We want to have that personal touch. Our district is small and very community-oriented, so playing on those values, bringing those in, why we're a community, why we're here. We're all here for our students. So definitely playing up those values and the value that our support staff and paraprofessionals bring to the district is the goal of the campaign.
I just want to make one more comment that we want to thank Mrs. Comp for her contribution to the It Matters idea, because it definitely is a good one.
I just have a quick question. I love that the It Matters, but I noticed on there that the individual, you referred to themselves as an aide. Would it be better to use the word paraprofessional?
So that's what I was kind of saying in the beginning, right? Depends on who you ask,
Okay.
on what term you get.
Okay.
I think it would be a good idea for us as a district to decide what we want to call them and make that more uniform of a message. I do think that's.
And I'm also thinking that if other schools, if that's the preferred term from a marketing standpoint, would it be good if we were recognizing them the same way? Because I have a sister-in-law that's a paraprofessional in Selinsgrove, and I know that that's how she refers to herself. And so I'm just wondering if that might be able to make that welcoming environment that we already know we have here one that kind of puts them on the same playing field.
Right.
I don't know.
Yep. Absolutely.
A question and a comment. Comment is, I think this is a great idea, PR campaign. Question, what is the ratio right now, paraprofessionals male to female?
So our ratio for that, we only have one male
Okay.
for paraprofessional currently, so majority of female dominated.
Okay, thank you.
A couple of things. First of all, incredible, thank you, and an incredible presentation to highlight an incredible group that works endlessly and tirelessly for our students. And they do such a fabulous job day in and day out, and we cannot thank them enough. Just in terms of, I would say, the incentives that we could possibly provide that are still within scopes of our current budget and within scope is, I would like to recommend that starting with fiscal year 23, that we add 2 additional days of PTO. Currently, right now, our paraprofessionals get 3 days of paid time off, and adding 2 additional days will give them 5 days of paid time off, which essentially allows them to care for a loved one, allows them to take a needed time maybe with their family, but also, allows them without having to take days unpaid. The second consideration is one that I mentioned earlier, is during the times of 2-hour delays that are unplanned, for salaried employees, it's not necessarily a fiscal concern. But for hourly employees, it is a fiscal concern. For instructional aides, or for paraprofessionals, it is sometimes a challenge to make up that time since they work directly with our students. And they do have responsibilities outside of school in terms of their own family. Our food service is still there and adjusting time in order to make up, to be able to provide for food. But this is a group, I think, that sometimes because of 2-hour delay is negatively impacted. I would like to see us consider making them whole during that particular time. And we're not talking about, knock on wood, a tremendous amount of time that we use 2-hour delays, but making sure and just monitoring that, but ensuring that we allow them to note that on their timesheet and still appropriately pay them during that time.
Do our paraeducators, are they able to meet with students during FID days?
Yes.
Great.
Yes, sir.
They have office time at the end of the day because they're in the classes with them.
Fantastic. I would support both of those things. And Ms. Miller, I love this. Like, this is what's going to draw people here, because there's no way we can pay them enough for what they do, because they're changing the lives of children every day, and it's hard work. Sometimes gross work, depending on the level they're working on. I mean, it's just tough. So I love what Dr. Fox said. There's no way we can pay them what they're worth, but the more we can promote the fact that there's something intrinsically valuable and that they are respected and we can respect them, I think is fantastic.
Something along those lines, Dr. Jones, maybe we need to do a survey of our current people, ask them, why did you come here? What appeals to you about the job? If we want to attract more people in for the job, we need to know what the people we have now, what brought them here in the first place. And that would be helpful.
Absolutely, thank you. So if you're okay with those 2 recommendations, we will share that news with our paraprofessional staff. Moving on, if there's no other comments or questions on our paraprofessional presentation. Cyber Charter resolution. I want to read this into, so it's a resolution calling for charter school funding reform by the Board of Directors of the Susquenita School District. What we would do is vote on and approve this particular resolution. I would then take this signed resolution and upload it into a collection of resolutions to the Pennsylvania State School Boards Association, which then would act as our collective voice to a larger, then it would be then sent as a collective voice of school districts passing this, several have, to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, to the state Senate, and to the State House of Representatives. It says, whereas the average Pennsylvania school district spends millions of dollars in taxpaying money annually and mandatory payments to brick and mortar and cyber charter schools, and these payments are calculated in a manner which requires districts to send more money to cyber charter schools than is needed to operate their programs and places a significant financial burden on the district's resources and taxpayers. And whereas the current cyber charter school funding formula was established in 1997 under the state's charter school law and has not been changed in 24 plus years since it was first created. And the formula for regular education programs is unfair because it is based on a school district's expenditures and not what it actually costs to educate a child in the charter school. And whereas the calculation for charter school special education tuition is unfair because it is also based on the special education expenditures of the school district rather than the charter school. And although the General Assembly revised the special education funding formula in 2014 to more accurately target special education resources for students identified with high, medium, and low needs, this formula was applied only to school districts and not to charter schools. And whereas, because the tuition rate calculations are based on the school district's expenses, they create wide discrepancies in the amount of tuition paid by different districts for the same charter school education and result in drastic overpayments to charter schools. And these discrepancies in tuition rates for regular students can vary by almost $13,000 per student and by $35,000 for special education students. And whereas the latest data from the Pennsylvania Department of Education shows that in 2019 and 2020, total charter school tuition payments, cyber, brick and mortar, were nearly $2.2 billion, with $694 million alone of that total paid by districts for tuition to cyber charter schools. And whereas further analysis of the Pennsylvania Department of Education data shows that in 2014 and 15, school districts paid charter schools more than $100 million for special education services in excess of what charter schools reported spending on special education. And whereas the cost of charter schools for school districts continues to grow significantly each year, and on a statewide basis are most identified sources of pressure on school district budgets. And whereas the need for significant charter school funding for reform is urgent, and school districts are struggling to keep up with the growing charter school costs and are forced to raise taxes and cut staffing, programs, and services for their own students in order to pay millions of dollars to charter schools. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Susquenita School Board calls upon the General Assembly to meaningfully revise the existing flawed charter school funding systems for regular and special education to ensure that the school districts and taxpayers are no longer overpaying these schools or reimbursing for costs the charter school did not incur. We, along with the Pennsylvania School Boards Association, are advocating for substantial change. So we would ask for your consideration of approving this resolution on April 12th. And I think that's a decent segue into our preliminary budget presentation number 2. We will have fun. Candy's good. So preliminary budget presentation number 2 at our April caucus, our plan to soar. Again, looking at our mission of Susquenita School District, Again, I just want to highlight, in partnership with parents, teachers, and community members, and dedicated to providing a safe and enriching learning environment that establishes high expectations, incorporates rigorous academics, and utilizes progressive technology, and focuses on developing the whole student so he or she may become a lifelong learner and make positive contributions to a diverse world. That is our charge that we do day in and day out, and this is the charge that we have within the context of the budget in which this is your budget in which we are preparing for the work in which we are currently all doing right now. So our budget goals continue to be enhancing and maintaining the current curriculum offerings for our students, our continuation to maintain and enhance our current facilities, and working to provide a budget that is financially responsible to all stakeholders. So let's talk about some information to date. We know, once again, that the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania's budget is not finalized. We still continue to keep our ears to the ground in terms of any legislative movement and notifications that we may see to allow us to make any forecasts that we could accurately and formally begin to predict. But in this particular case, that is not happening at this particular time. We continue to, and we have reviewed our fund balance and financial trends, and we continue to make our preliminary budget as a forecast. We'll continue to provide caucus presentations today, April, and we'll do so again in May. And we'll look for a preliminary final budget approval at our May board meeting. At that time, then our budget will be available for public review for the required PA school code requirement of 28 days for final approval and budget in June. Budget process steps to date. We continue this month to analyze, and as we have with buildings and departmental budgets. We look at things, and we look specifically at how and what movements can be made within our budget. We look at fixed drivers of our budget, our salaries and benefits, healthcare, PSERS, special education services, and of course, cyber charter, as we look to advocate with our cyber charter reform resolution. We continue to review our maintenance plan, and we continue to shape facility needs and prioritize based on where we see in our 5-year plan and based on realistic real-time data that we also receive. We passed and submitted our Act 1 resolution, and that resolution stated that we will not tax above the index at 4.6%. We approved the final audit report for fiscal year 21 at our March board meeting, and following this meeting, we can have any additional budget workshops at your discretion and based upon your feedback. Important information. This year, as we had stated, that the cost and object codes changed as per the PA charts of accounting have also changed. Therefore, cost comparisons from fiscal year 21 to fiscal year, or fiscal year 22 to fiscal year 23 may be difficult because of movements in categories and unpacking that large accordion that includes more object codes and functions. We designed this particular preliminary budget plan with no increase in projection in basic ed subsidy. So I think that's important, and I'll highlight that again. We made this plan with flatline fiscal year 22 basic ed subsidy planning and formula. That goes as well for IDEA, funding from Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. Plan for cost increase in commodities. We see that time and time again. We're a large entity, and I see that again when we go to the pump. We see that again when we go to the grocery store. We're planning in food service, right, to see cost of food increasing anywhere from 10% to 30% possibly. So we're planning for those increases. We're planning for increases in our fuel sources as well, our liquid propane that we use, and preparing for other slight increases that may occur. Preliminary budget is based on no tax increase at this time. Facilities budget highlights, we did that already when we looked specifically at some of our capital reserve, but I'll highlight a few. Middle school floor repairs, we have some what I would call bubbling that's occurring in a portion of our middle school. And in order to replace that, we can't just replace the bubbles. We need to replace the flooring. It is a laminate that's in sheets, and we need to repair that before it becomes a trip hazard. And I look at it daily. I think when I go through and I drive Mr. Black crazy with that. Middle school cabinets, phase 1 is being right now implemented, and like everything, unfortunately, it's being delayed. lots of production delays and lots of delays when it comes to getting those and getting those installed. But we'll put in phase one. We will see if phase one in the cabinets in the middle school help help with some of the reduction in what we're experiencing there. And maybe then, if needed, we can add phase two. If not, that will be a particular cost savings back to the district, to us. Repair and maintenance of our HVAC systems. We want to make sure that we continue preventive maintenance. We want to make sure we continue the operation of those. And we want to make sure that being more proactive. And I know Mr. Howell and his team have done a great job and will continue to. And a future project that's not in this budget, but something that you'll hear us, and I'd just like to take an opportunity, is we have that FS, if I'm saying that correctly, outside of this beautiful building. And we'll talk collectively as to what we're going to do with that in the long-term project. Athletic budgets, new varsity uniforms, part of our overall rotation. You'll see the rotation in your budget binder that shows the uniform rotation. Game balls, and some additional coaches that we had talked about before, and these JV assistants and varsity, JV assistants for baseball and for softball. A lot of that is for safety purposes too. If in fact one of the head coaches has to and is needed to be for the care of a student, then that leaves nobody particularly maybe on the bus, and we're not going to leave a student unattended. So this provides for the safety, and plus, you know, we rely a lot on volunteers, which is great, but volunteers are volunteers, and they have other responsibilities. And a proposed opportunity for cross-country at the middle school. If in fact we get enough to be able to hold the team, we would utilize and look for a particular coach. If not, then we would not be able to have a program for a year until we build the momentum up. Elementary budget highlights. Foundations is a big one here as well, and this is a part of our curriculum. And Foundations has been a really good reading strategy program through grades K, 1, 2, and 3, and now 1, 2, and 3. 1 and 2. Now we want to add it to grade 3. I'm sorry. And this would be for all the material as well as training. So it's a combination as well that you'll see here for that item. We want to replace the lamination machine. It gets used quite often at the elementary school, and looking for some flexible seating options and some tables. These kidney-shaped tables, they have like an indentation allowing the teacher, and use it for small group instruction when it comes to part of our station rotations used within the classrooms. Middle school budget, a lot was budget neutral throughout this year. We did see a lumber increase and an increase in the 5th grade college experience trip, larger class size, but also with just rising costs associated with it. But that 5th grade college experience trip is incredible when we look at part of our Chapter 339 plan, but also just giving them the experience to visit a college campus, which is outstanding, and some repair costs rather than replacement costs because we've replaced previous years. High school budget, I did want to point out a couple of things just in the red. You'll see here cafeteria table replacement with chairs. That's going to be under ESSERS 2, so it'll be pretty much a budget neutral number once we receive the revenue to offset the expense for cafeteria table replacement. The idea here is to get chairs and tables that allow for the use. So chairs that are separate, tables that are separate, that fold together and around. Now it can be used for a classroom space. It could also be used for professional learning and used for multiple functions. And those chairs would also have another function. That functionality then could be used for other venues, projects, ceremonies, including but not limited to possibility of graduation, and not renting chairs for that as well. So we'll make and ensure that those are the right chair to be used. Restroom stall replacement doors, again, that came from a student petition, which is awesome. Outdoor tables to use when you first walk into the high school. There's a great area. And we thought we'd put some outdoor tables out there. The vision of Mr. Funk to encourage students to have that, use that space a little bit, to take their lunch out the front door, to be able to sit outside when it's not 110 degrees or, and in this case, 32 degrees, and use some of those tables that can remain out there as well. 2 items in red, office laminator. We're going to move the elementary laminator to the high school lamination. We don't use as much lamination at the high school, so we think we can still get some mileage out of that. And the tent rental was brought up before, and I think it's a good point that we're going to take that $3,000 out of the general operating budget, and it's going to be a fiduciary account purchase and responsibility. Technology, I do want to point out just a couple of things. There's not much changed here as well, but you'll see the difference between like our core switch. And again, our core switch at the high school failed. And because of the hard work of Paul and Corey and the team and our technology team and Mrs. Montosh being able to patch that, we've been able to increase the life out of it and knowing full well that we need to replace it. But because of their quick action, we're able to wait and get E-rate, which is a savings of $33,000 by waiting until it becomes E-rate eligible. PAETEP is our electronic teacher evaluation portal. With Act 82 and Act 13, we wanted to stop becoming about a paper-pushing mechanism, or I can't find this document or what document, but house it in a system that allows us to utilize the powers of a pre-conference, an observation, and the post-conference to make it about the conversation, not about a piece of paper. And I think the feedback thus far has been relatively positive. Technology as well, just moving through here, you'll see the red is a removal. We look, and I give Mrs. Montosh and the technology committee a lot of credit because what they did was take a look at all of our programs, all the programs that we use. Who's using it? What's a replication? Do we need it? What do we have? Is there something out there that can be sustained? How many users are using it at this particular time? What function does it have? Is there a renewal? What's that increased cost of renewal? All that was done, and a lot of painstaking work that occurred and started, I believe, in late September, early October, and into November. And one of the things that we saw is we were underutilizing Performance Tracker. Performance Tracker is a housing network of data. And we said it's being underutilized at a cost of $15,000, which is relatively high. We believe we can harness the power of our own SIS system, our Student Information System in PowerSchool, and utilize the functionality within PowerSchool and save $15,000. So that's a good thing. Special education budget highlights. Again, special education is a variable, right? Because again, a student could move in, a student could, during the course of an IEP team meeting, it's based upon the program needs of a student, not necessarily a price tag. So that's a variable that we try to prepare for. But we do see an outside district school placement increase. We do have students that attend River Rock, Hilltop, Vista, and some other outside placement services. And a lot of those could be based upon the student need, and they could also be based upon a recommendation that was also made as well. So we are responsible for those students, and we have good partnerships with these providers as well.
A question on that, Dr. Fox. Are the costs going up so much because what they're charging us is increasing, or because of the number of students that we're placing out at those places?
That's it. That's a both.
Both.
Yes, sir. Great question.
Is that the same thing with the CAIU contracts?
CAIU contracts we're experiencing a 4% anticipated increase in those contracts as well.
And we contract with them for speech and language.
As well as our nursing contract services based upon the needs of student or students. curriculum and instruction. We are going to not renew our Otis Professional Learning Library because you saw some of the professional offerings that we're able to have because of our dedicated teachers, because of the courses that are asynchronous that are being built out, and we're building our own library out. Otis did a great job, but we want to repurpose some of that to create and invest in people, not necessarily in programs, and invest in a position of, at each building, an innovation coach. And these innovation coach would begin to work with our teachers during planning periods, maybe outside of the contracted time. They would work with our teachers on that coaching cycle and begin to assist them in the implementation. We call it innovation because it's not just about technology. It could be about instructional strategies. It could be a situation in which you want just another teacher to come in and give some feedback, not necessarily an evaluative feedback, but a coaching feedback.
Just a comment occurs to me. I'm hoping that, we haven't heard about it, but I'm hoping that we're going to maybe be seeing more teachers doing some differentiated supervision in the future instead of all these formal observations. And I believe if we do, an innovation coach would be a great person to stand alongside teachers looking at doing some differentiated supervision, some, action research, whatever. You haven't talked to us about it, but I feel that's probably going to come. That would be an amazing fit.
I think it lends itself to a great presentation that we can do in the future on our supervision plan. So it sounds like one we will tee up relatively soon. So thank you. No, don't be. It's something we've. Yep. One of the things we can utilize, and we are also looking at, and I'll give I'll give Ms. Snyder a lot of credit also, is she's applied for some other supplemental grants. And anytime there's a grant that has the potential to be lasting and has the potential to fit within some of the pretenses of what we're doing, we're going to go after that. And she spent hours looking at two in particular. So our fingers are crossed. We don't know if we'll hear back, but nevertheless, we want to move forward with social work services, and we'll use our 7% of, which is an ESSER's service for that as well, to help connect students to services, help connect families to services, and help that school to community. And social work is powerful.
The money's coming from the ESSERs for that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
ESSER 7% grant. Yes, sir.
Okay. So what happens when the ESSER's grant runs out?
We will evaluate if, in fact, that particular position is one that it allows us the time to collect data and allows us the time as a district to determine, is there additional funding sources, or is this position integral to our overall operations and one that we want to include in future fiscal year budgets.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. All right, down to some fun with pie charts. Looking at the 22-23 budget breakdown by object code, a grand total is $35,992,158. And you'll see that broken down with a large portion here into salaries. And again, we look at our fixed drivers, right? When we look at our fixed drivers and we look at what we necessarily have the ability to maybe look at and scrutinize, it's not a lot in terms of the overall operating budget. But here we go. Preliminary budget by function. Again, it still matches the $35,992,158, and these are the function codes that represent the objects that are within your budget binders and the real-time information as well. Debt service, our debt service payment, this is a good slide because it did change a little bit because of, as we heard previously from Mr. Remming in PFM with our new bank loan, which is coming in at 1.55%, which was great. It looks looking at new local effort and the existing local effort being offsetted, not necessarily a large amount of money when we are talking in terms of an impact to the overall budget. And again, this will come off, and the schedule will come off at June 30th of 2025 will be our remaining payment. And that wrapped in previous debt into this new bank loan. So hence the reason why it currently is the $9,522,318. The black to the left is the old. The blue represents the new. Cost drivers, these are continue to be things that continue to propel us, is salaries at 2.75% increase as per the contract. Benefits, our consortium healthcare cost increase. We are in a pooled consortium, and our pooled consortium is about 7%, even though our, again, risk is relatively low, and we've had a good year, but you go as the consortium goes. And that's a part about being a consortium. And it could be paid forward the reverse year, where we have a down year and somebody else has a good year and it offsets. And it gives that buying power, kind of like why I go to Sam's Club, right? I get buying power in bulk in larger items. That was not a good analogy. Our benefits, our PCERS contribution, and I'll show you some information on that, it is currently 35.26%. Cyber charter enrollment and tuition costs we're projecting at $3.16 million. And if I do quick math, that is approximately a little less than 10% of the overall operating budget. Just if we fix this number, right now, currently, we would have a balanced budget. Special education program placements increase. Cyber charter and comparison chart. I do want to, again, say our enrollment in cyber charter has gone down, but we are anticipating an increase in our tuition per student. Please, our 21-22, we will be submitting our PDE 363 forms, which sets the charter school tuition per student. And that's a possibility that will go up. So this is kind of a predictor. That's why it's flatlined right now. But we did see an enrollment decrease. Projected revenue. Projected revenue is coming in at $34,102,857. So you'll see that difference between our expenditures and our revenue. There's a slight gap in between those two. Looking at comparison budget years at around the ending. Again, I know in the last time we said we wanted actual, and stay tuned, there'll be a next slide that will give you some of those. But here's just a fun slide for just some deficit numbers at the end of 19, 20, 21, 22. And when we presented this information at our first preliminary budget round, we were predicting a $2.3 million deficit. So I'm glad you asked. Currently, right now, our expenditures are $35,992, revenue at $34, and our deficit right now is $1.889 million. So between March and now, there's $400,000 to the good. Detailed budget comparison over time. This is where we look to the left-hand side would be what's preliminarily budgeted. And actually, I'll give you a handout on this. I think I have one that you probably can see a little easier than this. In the middle is what's approved, and in the end, to the far side, this direction, is the actual. So you'll see what's budgeted and what comes actual. Trending right now and forecasting in our projected right now is we are projecting to come in this particular fiscal year. As we said, we're planning for $3 million, but we're coming in right now around 2.8. But for whole number's sake, we're still kind of looking at that $3 million as a deficit. And again, when the preliminary operating budget and approved, it was around $3,084,000. So hopefully we're projecting and coming in because of the prudence and responsibility of this team.
Why do you think projected income is going to be down? I know it's only $80,000, but real estate taxes and everything are up. From 32,686 to only 32,600.
Oh, okay. You mean from last year to this year?
No, isn't this budgeted versus actual?
Yeah, projected from last year, is that what you're asking?
So the green is what was budgeted, the 32,686 was the preliminary budget. What was approved was 32,686. What we're actually getting right now is 35,400.
32.6.
Over on
Oh,
the
I'm
end,
sorry, I
on the
looked at
very
the
end.
wrong, I'm sorry, I looked at the actual, so, yes.
Is there something that sticks out as to why?
I'm so glad you noticed that. Thank you for noticing that. The reason why, and those numbers are mine, and I put them on there because I rounded down because here we are trying to forecast the end of the year, right? So these numbers were my most accurate forecast, and it's just a way for me to show that the number's in flux. We didn't get to. I've not yet calculated, like I said I was going to do, I've not yet calculated where we're going to end up for this year on expenditures or revenues. So it's just you can chalk it up to rounding, if you will. So,
Okay.
Quick question.
So it's not what you're projecting as the actual number at this point in time. It's just a guess.
It's a forecast, yes.
Now, are you seeing that real estate taxes are up this year?
They are up, yeah.
Over budget?
I think Dr. Fox provided that.
Okay.
The
Sorry, I must
revenue
have
sheets,
missed that.
for the end of the year.
That's okay. I was just wondering why you're projecting. Well, I mean, why it looked like we were going to be down, but maybe in the end we won't be.
There is a troubling trend that I noticed today, and Dr. Fox and I had a conversation about our transportation subsidy was off by a couple $100,000, and that is so there is some troubling trends, but not on the local effort; it's more on the state effort. So there is some troubling trends that are on the revenue side of things, but not on the local effort. The local effort is coming in stronger than budgeted at this point.
It's probably some new formula that only affects Perry County schools.
No, I actually had there was an issue that for my previous district that came in very low as well, and they actually called me as to wondering why I had why it came in that low as well on the subsidy report. So there is some questions about it. I'm not overly concerned because it's only the preliminary report, but it was a couple $100,000 lower than it should be in the budget. So there is some issues. Some points of concern, and that's why Ken had said that it's just a forecast right now because all the state revenue doesn't come in. Funny as you may seem, doesn't come in until really June 28th. We'll get another big subsidy payment at the very end of the year.
Just a quick, so the expenditure forecast, is that based on full employment, every position full, or is it based on what we currently have as people that are on the payroll?
It's based on the people that we have now and our expectations of filling. So we sat down, Ms. Miller and our payroll person, Mrs. Pinson, and I sat down to look at next year, but we also were looking at where we thought we were going to end up this year in filling positions.
So this year is based on your anticipation of what you may fill by the end of the year?
Yes, sir.
So you had mentioned that the budget's being built on the state subsidies remaining flat. Do we have any historical perspective on that? Have they increased every year? Are you getting any word in the superintendent windmill of information? Like, is there any indicators at all of what's going to happen with that, up or down?
Historically, they've gone up a lot less than what the governor has projected. The governor's projection would increase Susquenita's revenue by about $1 million between basic ed and special ed subsidies. However, I would probably cut that as an aggressive number. I'd cut that in half if the legislator and the governor's budget goes. But we were told, and I'm sure through PASA, which is the administrators they were told to keep it as a flat line item, and that we're following those guidance right now to be safe, because we don't want to rely on something and then have to take it out the last minute.
Yeah, I think they're still having conversations about the use. We do know that there is a surplus at the Commonwealth. It's a matter of how that's going to be distributed. And we do know that we have a election and midterm elections coming up, primary elections, and we do know we have a large gubernatorial candidacy, and that could have some impact on the overall direction of the Commonwealth's budget and how that may impact final approvals of that. So when we get final information or even preliminary information, how solid is that preliminary information? So we are, because of those and forecasting, we want to continue to just keep it constant.
So, but there's no real indicators that it's going to go down, right?
No, there's no
So
indicators.
at least at this point, we're being uber conservative, and that the odds are we'll get more than what we're budgeting for.
I would say it's 50-50. We get more than what we budgeted for, but it's not more than 50-50 at this point.
Okay.
So I have a question as far as the expenditures, because in the information that you gave us back at the February, or maybe it was even in the March meeting, for salaries and wages, we were only around slightly over 50%, and that was over halfway through the year. And now it sounds like we're going to be at full expenditures. So I'm just trying to figure out where that discrepancy is that we're now going to meet all of those when we were almost 3/4 of the way through the year and we had still only spent 50% of those.
I think that's, yeah. If you're looking just at the salary line, are you looking at salary line?
I'm looking at salaries and benefits. So we should have that portion of that hasn't been expended, as far as expenditures that would not have been expended.
I guess a calculation that we could look at, or information that we could provide to you as part of this, would be the number of days, the number of operating days, or the number of salary days, or the number of payrolls that are included in each one of these monthly looks. And I think that's an important thing to consider. So for each of our payrolls might be $250,000 of payroll, and I could be off on that figure, but for each one of those payrolls, if there's 26 total a year, and you're looking at the month of February or March, those could skew those percentages from year to year. So I think it might be important for me to provide for you the number of operating days or the number of payrolls if you're looking at salaries and benefits for those particular categories.
So you're talking about the fluctuation in 2 pay periods in a month versus 3?
Possibly.
But once
So,
we have...
so 1 month can be a third higher than the next month.
I understand
Okay.
that, but if it's based on a fiscal year, and your fiscal year runs July 1 to June 30, if you're over 50% through, you would expect your budget number by the end of February to be at around 66% complete. So if we're at 53% and we're well over 50% through the year, then why would we be saying that our total expenditures are what we have budgeted when we're well past 50% of the fiscal year?
I think a couple of considerations would be also that you have to look at when do we get our bills for transportation? When do we get our bills for fuel? For
And that's,
electricity,
yes, that's what I'm asking. So if we haven't spent all the money in salaries and benefits, which that would be where the expenditures should be lower, where else is this money going that we would then be spending all of what we had budgeted as far as expenditures? And that's what I would want to see is where are those expenditures then extremely high so that we're looking at that to be looking at for next
a large
budget
one
year.
would be a debt service payment.
The debt service payment came out in March. So the
But that would have been budgeted. We should have had that budgeted. So it shouldn't matter because that would have been budgeted. And that shouldn't cause that budget to still look like we've spent what we fully expended because we would have budgeted that. So what I'm asking is where is this additional money being spent?
Right. So
I think she's asking because of all the shortages in staffing we had all year. Where is that money?
Where's
at?
that money?
Right. So once we have payroll, we're not going to go back and pay people for
Not gonna go
previous
back and
time.
pay people.
Right. So once it's not spent that pay period, it's not spent, and it's, we don't use that money.
Yep.
I mean, is that what you're saying?
Yes,
that's what I'm saying.
If
So
the
I
payroll is
think
passed,
correct me if I'm wrong, the chart that we're representing is a projected forecast. So this chart here is a projected forecast. And in terms of real-time information as to if John Fox was absent for 3 months and just added, that wouldn't be reflective necessarily in this projection.
Okay.
I think is what I'm hearing. I think that's a fair statement.
But I think that we have actual numbers for payroll up until, like, say, last month, and then he's projecting what we're going to do the rest of the year. All that money we didn't spend previously should not be in there.
right?
And I think, if I understand correctly what you're saying, Marcy, we didn't get this last year, but we were hoping to get it this year, and it's not time to give it to us yet. But if you look at each category in the budget and you look at, say, salary and benefits and say, we underspent in salary and benefits, so that $100,000 or whatever it is actually went to the costs that we had to overspend in transportation because transportation was $100,000 more than we budgeted. So we're looking to see where we underspent, where we overspent when it's all said and done, because currently we should be well under with salary and benefits, given that we have some positions we haven't even.
Well,
Is that
we
what
have
is that correct?
25 vacancies just in paras. I mean,
Right. If I'm
that's-
hearing earlier that we are basically at 50% capacity for what we are to be for paraprofessionals, that's 50% of that budget that has been unspent. So that's what I'm asking, is that if that money was spent somewhere else, where was that money spent? Because what you're projecting is that our expenditures are going to be exactly what we budgeted for our expenditures.
Okay.
So where is that money
I
being
s-
spent?
I see what you're saying. And what I'll do is I'll work with Dr. Fox and Mr. Bard in the next couple of days to provide you that information. I think it's also important to know that the total number of salaries and benefits does comprise 65% of the whole budget. So if we're looking at most of the openings we have now in the paraprofessionals make up a relatively small percentage of the overall dollar spend in salaries and benefits, but we'll certainly get that number to you so that you can maybe divide that out by function. So you might see regular education, salaries and benefits, special education salaries and benefits, administrative salaries and benefits, and maybe that'll be the information that you're looking for.
I just need to know the total number and where has that money been? Where's it going?
Sure.
And while you're doing that, can I ask one more question? And it doesn't change my opinion of moving forward with it, but what is the 5 days and 2 hours going to cost us by paying the paralegals that we weren't in the budget before? Or do you have that now?
No, we'll get that for you.
Okay. I think it's important that we do it, but I would just like to know what that number is.
Can I just, does that really, I know it costs us, but does it really affect the budget? I mean, because.
Absolutely, you got to pay it. The days
Oh, because
off,
they're
the days
hourly.
off are going to be
Because they're hourly.
Yeah, those
Okay,
positions
got
are
it.
only budgeted
and when you're
for
paying
like
them the
6
extra 2
hours.
hours,
or
not
whatever.
that I don't think we should do it. I'm just saying it's going to be
I
a
see what you're
cost.
saying. I was thinking that they were salaried, so whether they were taking a day off or not, but I got
So
it.
when we budget that we're here for 182 days.
Right.
And 6 hours per day at 182 days. So that's in the budget.
Oh, so it is already budgeted.
Correct.
So
The-
really, the only thing new is going to be the 2 days.
You're just taking the time off.
Correct, but they're already budgeted too.
But in a real world, you would have a substitute fill that in.
We do not get substitutes for our paraprofessionals.
If you had them, would you?
That would be a wonderful luxury.
I'm not saying, but I'm just saying we have to be realistic. Like maybe for some reason that's going to become a popular job.
And
I don't know that it
we
is,
will
but
revisit. Yep.
you never know.
So essentially what you're saying is it really, while it costs us time, it doesn't cost us any more money in the budget because it's already been budgeted in, as if they were here all 180 days.
That's accurate.
So how will they get, like, will they have to earn their days, like work a quarter and then you get this many days, and work a quarter and then you get this many days? Or are they just going to be given their 5 days at the beginning of the school year?
I'm going to turn over to Ms. Miller.
So for all of our paraprofessionals, they're on that 90-day probation. So with their 90-day probation, once they have successfully completed that 90 days, they have those 3 PTO days to use. So those, technically all of our days for all of our staff members are prorated. They don't earn them in arrears. If that answers your question.
Can they earn them and anticipate? Can they earn them ahead, like you're saying now?
Yes.
They can anticipate it, but then if they were to leave, they would have to pay them back?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, so they pay it back if they leave early.
Correct.
I'll just throw another wrench in. This summer trade day packet is so robust that I bet some of our para-educators would love to participate in some of those things. So, I mean, maybe down the road, we could offer trade days to para-educators for participating. I'd like to see them to at least be able to participate. If they're alongside the professional, how cool would it be if they were taking the training alongside the teacher they were working with? I mean, maybe we could build some trade time in for a day off, or just make sure they're invited to participate. It would elevate them to be able to participate in the same training that the professionals are participating in, and typically they're not invited.
Great idea.
I think you should invite retired Dr. Jones in to teach one of your trade days for you.
When we talk district millage rate, I'd like to put this slide in here because I think it's important to know that our millage rate is subject to change every year regardless of any tax increase. So again, a millage rate is subject to change every year regardless of tax increase because we are a multi-county school district operating in both Perry and Dauphin counties, and we're required each year to rebalance our millage rate using an approved baseline method. Multiple county districts are sensitive to both assessed and values and market values, which get provided to us from both Perry and Dauphin counties several times before they are finalized in May. There will always be a change based on market value increases, as once the rate changes in one county, it changes as well in the other county. Speaking of county millage comparisons, this chart did not change. Looking across, this is just for analytics and comparative purposes. This came from Forecast 5, and it's based on STEB, or the Pennsylvania State Tax Equalization Board. We talked a little bit on fund balance. I will skip over the next several slides because we talked about fund balance and made some changes already to fund balance. New budget deficit. As of April, our new budget deficit as of right now, projecting and forecasting is $1.89 million. We will continue, and we have analyzed line items to provide a forecast anticipated increases for expenditures with rising costs. This does not include a tax increase using any of the Act 1 index. Again, this preliminary budget does not include a tax increase based upon Act 1 index. The planning of this budget also does not include for any basic education subsidy and IDEA funding increases. We're using level funding, as we said, from 21-22. Let's talk a little bit about, and I'm glad this came up, and I said, hey, I might have a slide for you, and I certainly do. So taking a historical look at PSER's employment rate. PSER's employment rate, going back to 2008, 2009, our employer rate contribution was 4.76%. And then we got funded with 4.78%. And now you get to see down and what we were actually and what we were doing as a board and what you were doing with the board long before me was planning for what you saw was coming down. And rightfully so, right? You were planning for this. Like a sweet ride at Hershey Park. You were going up. That's exactly right. Because 35.2% is a large. But because of your fiscal responsibility and budget, you still maintain an $8 million PSERS reserve. And here is the PCERS contribution chart from PCERS themselves with anticipated future rates at a 7% return. And this came from, provided by the PCERS site. 24, 35, 25, 36, 26, 36, I see a pattern, 27, 36, and et cetera. But here's where we're at, right? We climbed, we climbed, we climbed. I'm not saying it's not a lot. It is. But we're starting to go this way. I mean, it's still we're still up high, but we're up high and we're coming across the peak or the valley. So we've kind of hit that apex. Now we're going across. That's still a lot. So to our friends in the legislature, absolutely some relief here is still needed. But we fiscally plan for that. Deficit options we can discuss. And again, this is your budget. I'm just providing options of where we are at right now. Not that we have to make any decisions in our preliminary budget presentation here in April, but we can honor your commitment for PCERS. You've put away $8 million, and on committing, that still leaves currently $6 million in PCERS reserve, moving fund balance, right? So if we moved fund balance based on our previous conversation to $6 million, you could apply $2 million of your committed $6 million to current PCERS obligations this year, and that leaves $4 million still in PCERS reserves for fiscal years moving forward in fund balance and reserves. $4 million in itself would pay for all of our obligations in a budget year without any reimbursement.
Okay, yeah, so you lost us.
Okay.
So you have 8.
We have
taken out 2.
Taken out 2 from previous discussion, if that passes.
Okay.
That leaves
6.
We could utilize, for this particular budget year, $2 million of that commitment that you've honor your commitment in PCERS and apply $2 million to our current existing budget deficit to offset rising costs of PCERS.
I thought we already had the money for this current year.
We do.
Oh,
but this is
next year.
forecasting for fiscal year 23.
So he's basically saying take $2 million of the PCERS and balance the budget.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And that's making, because unfortunately we're looking at fund balance commitments of 22 in this same presentation, which.
But if you're looking at the next 3, 4 years, we're not debt free, and we only have $6 million in PCERS, and we don't have a balanced budget, then we don't have enough in our fund balance to do that for the next 4 years. We only have enough to do that for the next 3 years.
Correct, but
Fund balance, just not in our fund balance portion that's committed to PCERS.
Right.
No, if we're going, so we have $8 million. If we're going over $2 million a year, it's gone in 3 years, is what she's saying.
But we've been going over $2 million a year ever since I've been on the board. I guess this
Yeah,
is
but
what
at one point we had
confuses me.
$15 million. At one point we had half our budget.
I guess what I'm saying is that, all right, okay, beginning of the
So
90s,
our
you said
total
15
Fund
million.
10, our fund balance, is $15 million by our auditors, audited number for fiscal year.
Yeah,
It's
but
breaking,
don't they have depreciation and stuff in that number?
No.
No.
Not according to what he had before.
That's our audited.
That's our capital reserve,
Correct.
the healthcare, the PCERS.
Well, the numbers you showed us
Oh,
tonight are
that's
nowhere
right,
near
you're right, it
$15
doesn't
million.
include.
So they do.
They did, the first slide.
If we were to look, and I'm just going to go off my memory, let's take $1 million in retirement healthcare costs. We said we're going to take $3 million off the top for deficit projecting for this current fiscal year. So now we're at 4. We said there's 267 something for $2,670,000 for South Central Healthcare Trust. That's in reserve. And I believe then that leaves $1 million we considered and had a discussion for cyber charter, $1 million for future fund balance, and then that leaves the current remaining would be PCERS, which I believe at that time is 6 million.
Yeah.
And that should equal 15 something.
But all that healthcare stuff is gone. I mean, I know we didn't spend it yet, but that's going to be gone. Because I thought we had to hold that.
Oh yeah, that's money that we can't, but it's still in our fund balance. So really, you're right. If we were to take 2,670,000 and subtract that from the 15, we would be left with 13 something. So 10 something.
I'm sorry. What happens to the 3 million that's in our fund balance that we were designating toward paying our deficit this year? If we're going to take 2 million from PCERS, then that leaves.
If you followed that slide, the 2 million for PCERS, they pointed out it's actually next year.
Okay.
It's not this year.
Okay. Good.
Yeah, right now for 22 in terms of deficit. Like do we have that prediction? for
Currently,
deficit?
roughly $2.8 million, I believe.
What we're trying to do is try to use our budgeted deficit number, which is
We are forecasting what that number was prior to the fiscal year's 22's budget number of where it came in to try to make an anticipated forecast of where we're going to end up in 12 weeks.
And wasn't that, go ahead, what were we going to say? I thought the number was like, where's the 400,000?
So let's just say 15 million now at the end of this year turns into
No, I'm not
12
talking,
million.
Wait, don't go to there yet. I just want to know what's happening with this current, like the budget that we had last year where we built in, there was a deficit. Where is that falling as we're predicting for the end of 2022? Are we going to be at that 2 million? Are we going to be under that 2 million?
And Dr. Fox and I and Mr. Bard, we did talk about this. The number that we gave to the board last week or last month was what this board had approved. Okay, this board approved last June a budget that showed a deficit of $2.8 million, and that they were going to make up that $2.8 million by using fund balance.
Okay.
So we're still using those exact same numbers. We are in the process of refining where our expenditures and revenues are going to end up for this current year. So we try to track those revenues as they come in, our expenditures as they come in. And Dr. Fox, if you'll allow me to say, I do believe that we are not going to use $2 million as projected. I don't know where it's going to be, but I feel very strongly
It's going to be under that.
It's going to be less than that.
Which is historically what ends up happening, is I think what Mike has said
But-
and everything else.
So how much over the last 2 years has been ESSER's money that we will never get again after this year? Is that 5 million, 3 million, 10 million?
I will need to.
We will add that up for you.
So,
because what I'm saying is we got a free gift. What I've been trying to point out all night is there's a cliff coming because we have all this free money, kind of like was it No Child Left Behind or whatever it was, where they were given all this money and then all of a sudden you had to keep these programs, but the money went away. That's kind of what's happening to us. They wanted us to hire all these people and do all this stuff, and then that money's gone.
I'm not sure. I think we were pretty careful with the ESSERS money to do a lot of, like we had done when that other money was given. I forget the stimulus money it was, but I think we were pretty careful not to use that money for things that would continue to reoccur in our budget. I think we were pretty
And I think we
careful.
also built that into our budget last year. Like there was ESSERS money already built into the budget because we already knew we had that money last year for 2022.
Like this year, we're getting
Correct,
cafeteria
but-
tables. We're using the ESSERS money. So a lot of that, I think we were pretty careful
Yeah, we
not to accrue a steady budget item.
Because I think one of the only things we did that would look like it was going to be a constant forever item were the iPads.
iPads, that's what I was thinking.
You know, they were the ones that we knew that was going to.
I remember doing budget last year, and this person we never had before, and we added them, and this person we never had before, and we added them. We added like 5 or 6
added a
positions.
couple positions. Yeah.
Not
we added a bunch of positions.
Yeah.
But not with, I don't think with ESSERS money.
Oh, some of them we added with ESSER's money. We just talked about one tonight.
But we did.
Okay, within our current budget that we're proposing right now for fiscal year '23, there's no additional positions. The social worker would be a contracted service. When that service is no longer in ESSERS, that service can go away. And what we said was we want to measure the impact of that position and see if it's meaningful to include it based upon our current conditions of where we are at in future fiscal years, if there's a need for it.
I would still be interested in seeing what the ESSERS money is, because I don't think that there's any way possible that if you're spending $35 million this year in expenditures, that next year you're going to come back and say, oh, it's only $33 million. That's not going to happen. It's going to be $36 million. So that $2 million that we got for free, and I'm just using a number that I don't know is true, that $2 million we got for free next year is going to be $1 million more than that number, and we don't have that $3 million.
I would like to see that too, because I think we were pretty careful with that. I hope we were.
But I don't think. But what I'm saying is, I don't care if you took the $2 million in ESSERS and you spend it on tables and all this other stuff. Next year, there's going to be more tables that need replaced. Scott's going to come and need something. I don't know what it is, but let's just say he got something in ESSERS for $500,000. There's going to be something next year for $500,000. Your budget, we're never going to go back down to $33 million.
Yeah, but we won't. We just will not replace those tables if we don't have the money to replace them.
So
the number of items. I'm sorry, Dr. Fox, but in the budget books that you provided that Mrs. Ballsbaugh had created for the board for last month, that you should have budget sheets in there for each of the ESSERS 7%, ESSERS 2, and ESSERS 3. So that should give you the items that Dr. Fox and the administration are recommending to use for ESSERS for fiscal '23. I think that's the number you might be looking for.
So with that said, yes, it is a revenue coming in. That is an accurate statement. So with that, is there anything we want to do, can do, should do, to look at in the future to avoid what we would say would be no longer having, because again, when we go to our revenue number, let's look at local revenue coming in versus state revenue coming in. They almost match each other. And the reason is because, yes, there are extra grants coming through that will not be there in the future. That is an accurate statement, 100%. Well said.
Well,
So
to answer your question, it would be very helpful for us to have a line of items that were paid for through grants or ESSERS money that is expected to be renewed next year. That would be helpful.
Absolutely, we can do that.
And there's no one here I know that can answer this probably, but I think that the previous administration used ESSER money to support the budget in 2020 and 2021. That's why our deficit is so low, because when we originally started talking in 2019 about the 2020 budget, the deficit was like $3.5 million. And at the end of the year, it ended up not being that much because they were getting free money from the government.
Yeah, but
COVID.
it would have come in 2020, though. Yeah.
So we weren't through the budget process when COVID hit. And then all of a sudden this free money started coming in. Prior to that, there was a $3.5 million deficit in 2020. And then that went away because the government started throwing money. We had people not coming to work. There was all kinds of stuff that happened. So what I'm saying is if you go back through and look at all the free money we got over the last couple of years, it's going to be a much bigger number than what we remember because we were not shared all the information.
But that would have come out in the wash with this last budget. If it was something I think you're right, but if it was something that they did that was passed on from year to year, we would have felt that this year.
So one more question, because it's more question. Now you know I'm getting tired.
Well, I think ESSER 1 would have been used up already by this time. Yeah, ESSER 1 would have been used. You're talking about ESSER 1. ESSER 1 came out around that time. So I think Mr. Lehman is correct on that.
So ESSER's 2, 3, and 7%. And those are showing this increase for this year of 1.6 million or so.
Yes.
Is that a one-time for this year, or is that extended over several years? I know some of them were.
Yeah, they're extended over several years. They can be for a one-time expense or can be used by 2023, I believe.
Right, but I mean, is this 1.6, is that all of it, or are we
That's
carving
a
that
portion
out?
of it.
That's just a portion?
Even, I think if I recall correctly, without my going into
2024,
e-grants.
Dr. Fox.
Oh, sorry, thank you.
Sorry about that. 2024, they could be used by September 20.
But I think what she's asking, it's not 1.6 every year. It was a 1.6 one-time shot, and we can spend it over 4 years.
So ESSER's 3 itself was 1.9 million. ESSER's 7%.
So
what I'll
I guess
do
what I'm
is-
just asking is this 1.6 it?
No.
Like, is this that, so next year there won't be anything from that?
They'll-
Or have you earmarked so much per year?
We've looked at what is expended and what costs are coming out this year. It's not the utilization of all, but it
Okay.
won't be
It won't be
1.6 million.
1.6.
No.
Okay.
No, but what we will do is we'll give a line item breakdown. So we did use to supplement, not supplant, but to supplement some costs and benefits for some of our professional staff. So we did utilize some of that as well. So yes, there could be in the future that funds won't be there, but there will be some moving forward, but it won't be to the tune of 1.6. That's a great question. So our next steps are continue to reduce the deficit in areas that we can. So from March to April, we've already reduced $400,000 in the operating budget. We'll continue to await on more information from the Commonwealth's budget. When we feel we get a good, accurate, realistic number that we can use, we will include that. If we get it. If we do not get it, then, and it does come out favorable for us, that is revenue coming back in that could be added to Fund 10, our fund balance. May preliminary final approval, as we said, I'll provide some more information at May Caucus, final budget in June, and the questions can come through the QR code document or just strictly email them directly. At this time, besides a list of ESSERs, some more information pertaining to where we are at in real time with salary and benefits. Is there any other additional information at this time that you need, or is there any specialized or specific meetings that you would like to have, or anything at this point?
The 400,000, just so I understand, is that actual cuts, or was that ESSER's money that we spend that we're not spending again this year?
That was reduction.
Like,
That was
name one of them.
Okay. It was back to the 15,000 in
Okay, Power School, I get that
Power
one.
School. It was also an increase in revenue as well. So when we
So that's
look-
not a cut, that's revenue.
It's like the tent, they're not buying the tent for the homecoming.
So again, let me rephrase that. We worked to reduce the deficit in areas. Not necessarily cuts. I can tell you right now, and I'll say it again, anything that's within this budget right now in the presentation in this preliminary budget, I feel strongly enough to have in here, or it wouldn't be set to be cut. And we could delay things if needed, but I wouldn't present it to you if it needs to be cut. But what I can say is we're working to reduce our deficit rather than particularly cut.
Well, but in wording, it says currently reducing $400,000 in operational budget.
That's correct. My apology. We reduced the impact of the deficit from 2.3 to 1.889.
Are you able to send us an update electronically of what we have here? Would that be helpful?
So in the QR document, that's the real-time document and information electronically.
Okay, very good. And it's hard to know whether we're going to need another budget meeting or not, because we don't know what questions we're going to have. So I think we should establish a deadline for when we should get our questions to you, so you can predict whether or not we feel we would probably need a budget meeting or not. So,
Yeah, I think
is
that's
that like
important.
2 weeks, Marcy, do you think? Was for us to submit our questions on the QR code. I suggested we come up with a date. Do you think 2 weeks? By 2 weeks, we should have all our questions in, so we can look at those questions and decide whether we need to schedule a meeting before the May caucus. 2 weeks?
Yeah, and I would think we're going to need a meeting because they were talking about moving a bunch of stuff around. So there's going to be places where there were zeros and now there's going to be money, and places where there was money and now there's going to be zeros is what I'm thinking. I'll be honest, I didn't look at it yet, but they were talking about moving categories and adding stuff together and all that kind of stuff. There's going to be, unfortunately, I think a lot of questions.
Here's what I'll do. Because of advertising responsibilities, I'm going to go ahead and ask Dee to find a date, and we'll go ahead and have a special budget meeting, and we'll go ahead and schedule that. I'd rather schedule it, and then if we don't need it, at your discretion, we'll cancel it. But I want to go ahead and schedule it upon your request. Understand. I will try to find a date that works, but yet a date that provides us with the opportunity, because we do have to advertise for it because it is an open meeting. So again, I will send something out relatively soon with a date. Secondly, please, questions that you have to allow us the opportunity to prepare for those appropriately and effectively. At this time, if there's no other additional questions, we'll go and see if we have any public comment electronically that has been submitted. Hearing none at this time, it is 10:28. I would move that we end caucus.
Second.